the ruffian son of a high-ranking noble family, reigning over the academy like a king. He gets a letter from the family that he is being removed from the family register, reading which he states that he feels as he is being ridiculed by the gods. His name is Ed Roth Taylor, and his life was over, as we see him getting thrown out of the house with some of his basic belongings. Students around the school comment about his disownment, and he even had to empty his dorm room, so everyone assumes they won't be seeing him next semester, and with his crime being rigging of entrance exams. But Ed finds it unfair, because the arrogant Ed Roth Taylor they are talking about is not him. He apparently entered a game based in the magic school, Sylvania Academy, his favorite game, the failed swordsman of the Sylvania. Usually, when you enter a game, you either possess the first son of Chable, a genius ruffian clan master, or a SSS rank hunter character who breaks the rules. And yet out of everything, he became a third-rate villain who gets kicked out of the dorms at the beginning of the game. He got the worst character at the worst timing. He screams on top of his lungs that it's not fair, stating that he always lived a simply and frugal life, without greed. Hearing which, students around calls him a scumbag, as he is calling it unfair after everything he has done. And so, he quickly and quietly sits back down. He then looks over himself in the mirror, and we see his stats, and the reason on why he has the worst starts. Despite attending a magic academy, his intelligence is crawling on the floor, and his stamina is also too low, even for a noble. He was originally a third-rate trampy villain who appeared in early scenarios. Even in his memory, Ed is basically a blur. He suddenly remembers what happened to him later. In corner of the ending credits, he was begging like a damn bomb, which he doesn't find surprising. As a ruffian who knew nothing about the world gets thrown to the street, the fact that he is alive is lucky itself. But he has questions. Why was it him? Why did he came to possess this body? He don't know the reason, nor does he have any way to find out. But he decides that he won't let it be his ending, and he is going to make it, no matter what. Rather than a school, the academy is closer to being a city with the entire Arkan Mountains as its premises. And the place he is in right now is in the northeast of the academy, the undeveloped forest. He was trying to escape the prying eyes of the student and ended up walking half a day. It was plenty of time for him to understand the situation he is in. At the point where Ed was just disowned, it was the extreme starting part of the scenario, but fortunately, even though he was disowned by his family, he was not expelled from the school yet, which is extremely important, because the setting Sylvania Academy is a top-notch academy. As long as one graduates from it, they are guaranteed a secure future. As long as the game is set in the academy, he can use the intel of a 5-time dedicated player of the game to the fullest. Meaning, if he can graduate quietly, he can live a way more comfortable life, an awesome one than the one he had in the past world. And so, his goal is graduation. The issue is the enormous tuition fees, but the semester must already be paid for. So, if he were to get scholarship for the next semester, though we don't know if he can get a scholarship with his stats. But regardless, he decides to think about it later, and first he needs to survive, and he would need food, clothing, shelter the most right now. He wonders, how can he avoid turning into a bum for around the next week, and he seems to have enough clothes for now. And for the food and shelter, you don't have any place to stay, nor any food to eat tonight, and given his character's reputation, he cannot get a job, and he can't go to dorm either since he was kicked out. So for now, he is stuck in the woods, though he is glad that there is a stream nearby. There is 10 days till the school starts, so until then, he plans to make himself suitable for attending school. And a bit later, we see him using the spell, Wind Blade, to chop down wood. And for some reason, he is completely exhausted to death after cutting only 15 tree trunks, and realizes that his spell is not that useful. He also starts to get really hungry, commenting that they should have at least fed him something before kicking him out. Suddenly, he remembers something that his grandfather used to tell him when he was young. He said that he used to eat tree bark in the back mountains. And so, he starts boiling them up with his ignition spell, noting that anything edible is good for him. And looking closely, he thinks that it looks like chicken breast. But as soon as he eats it, he starts to regret it. Now fast forward to day 3, we see him completely shrinking from hunger, as he tells his grandpa that he hates him. And after starving for a day and throwing up for 2, he came to the conclusion that wood should be used for building. First thing, you need to raise the frame that supports the wood. And while he only has 2 hands, there are 4 supports, which is not really an easy job to do. But he gets back up again, and this time quickly ties them together from the upper side. And with that, he has finally completed the shelter's frame, though it's still a long way to go for him. And since he cannot sleep on the bare ground, he puts his clothes down there. While it's a waste, he doesn't have a choice. And fast forward, it gets night, and it passes to another day as well. And Ed finally managed to finish up his small tree shelter. And with that, he also gets some skills and levels for building it. Though, he notes that the crafting system pops are still the same as the game. He remembers that while Ed doesn't know it since he lived as a noble, he is actually more talented with his hands than with magic. And right now, he needs that handiness skill as well. A bit later, we see him creating a simple harpoon with his skill, as he decides to get something proper to eat for himself. With 2 days on an empty stomach and excessive physical labor, he definitely shouldn't be able to move right now, yet it's perhaps his desperation is what keeping him moving. Seeing some fishes out of the water and craving for meat, he quickly uses ignition on them. And with that he finally got something proper to eat. Now there is a week left until the school starts. Natty have to hold out as he is right now. If he simply managed to do that, then he would be able to get through school without much trouble. But before he can take his first bite, someone calls him out, as he thinks that he was so busy surviving that he forgot something important. The main characters, that is, as we see a girl recognizes him. But out of all the people, he didn't expect it to run into her over here, as we get a flashback where she told Ed that he don't have the slightest remorse, so he should disappear from the academy. And that girl is Princess Phinia, who asks Ed if he still haven't left this place. And she is also the person who kicked out Ed Roth-Taylor from the dorms. Ed Roth-Taylor is a villain that appears as soon as the game starts. Using his status as a noble, he hits on the MC's childhood friend and gets his ass kicked in return. Not stopping there, with a vengeful heart, Ed maliciously adjusts the MC's entrance exam for Sylvania Academy. But he is caught by a girl who came to take the entrance exam while hiding her identity. Phinia Elias Kloll Empire's third princess, the Princess of Phinia. She activates her insight and detects her target's lies and conspiracies. Ed Roth-Taylor, who was caught in a sad state, gritting his teeth and making excuses, had all of his lies exposed by Phinia's insight. And then he was chased out of the dorms, and everyone at the academy may hate him. But he met someone that he shouldn't meet the most, as Phinia asks him, what is he doing here? And if he is trying to say that the academy isn't expelling him, and Ed nervously replies that he is still a student here, but he was still chased out of the dorms. Keeping her word short, Phinia tells Ed to leave, stating that she cannot stand to see a shameless person like him on the school grounds, and she plans to talk to the academic department and personally request his expulsion for the crime of committing a dishonorable act as a student of the academy. And while she is nagging all that, our poor MC is more concerned by the fact that his fish is getting burned after starving for 3 days at that. Though while the burning food is an issue for him, right now he has a life crisis in many ways. Because the person in front of him, Princess Phinia, really has the power to get him expelled. And so Ed decides to do something. His expression changes as he tells Phinia that the sun will set soon. Aren't the royalty always guarded heavily by soldiers? And with an evil smile, he comments, to think that a noble princess would come to an isolated forest alone like this. But Phinia also warns him that if he is threatening her, knowing that she don't have escorts right now, then he will regret it. And Ed replies, what does she mean by threaten? As he kneels down, while stating that he is simply trying to thank the princess. Phinia is confused and again activates her insight. And it tells her that Ed is indeed saying the truth, which surprises her, and Ed notes her reaction as well. The Roth-Taylor family that Ed belongs to is famous and influential, but using that name to exploit the citizens in doing human experiments for research into eternal life. To the MC, it's a trash family that is destined to be destroyed. The people of the family will all be imprisoned or executed. However, he was disowned. Meanwhile, his fish is completely burned, though he still finds it better than dying hungry. Back to the main thing, he realizes that it's a good thing he was kicked out in the long run, so he needs to convince Phinia like this without lying. Or else, he would be expelled, meaning it would be game over for him. And looking at the timeline, around when Ed gets expelled, right now it should be about a week before the school starts. Then what would be the reason for the princess to be here? He starts to get up and says Phinia that since she is here without any escort and in simple clothing, she must be completing the class placement test. Professor Glass's class placement test. It's apparently a test to find magic beads hidden in the forest. He tells Phineas that Professor Glass's test is known to be quite vicious, and that if it's her, she must be aiming for the best class, which would be Class A. Phineas asks if he is trying to flatter her, and that he hasn't changed a bit. And right as she is stating that she would request the Academy to expel him, Ed speaks up, saying that without his help, she would never be able to enter Class A, and if his words are a lie, then she can get him expelled. And so, according to Ed's instruction, she has to go to the lake at the southeast of the forest. There will be a small, grassy island, and there will be a giant tree in the middle of that island, which is called the Marilda's guardian tree. And there, she would find the present that he has left, which she really does. She remembers that Ed Roth-Taylor from 3 days ago was definitely a liar and a charlatan. She still vividly remembers his sad state. But the Ed Roth-Taylor that she saw just now, he was different. Now we fast forward, and the class placement has officially ended, with Professor Glass telling everyone to take out their breads that they have acquired. And as the students does so, seeing their beads, he assigns them to Class F. Apparently, it is important to take note of the examiner's intent in a test. The test is not just about finding magic bead. And we learned that only those who found the beads which were lacking in magic power are the ones to make it to Class A, and only 3 students found them. Zix, Lortel, and lastly, the one who found a bead at the guardian tree of Marilda that had unusually low magic power. They 3 shall be at the top of the class. Back to Ed, whose fish is all burned now, and he don't have any more strength to use the spear. And so he creates a crude fishing rod for himself. While thinking about Phineas, she is the 3rd princess of the Empire, Phoenicia Elias Clole. Since she was young, she has seen through flattery and sophistry. And it sharpened her insight, and led to the creation of her innate skill. No one can ever escape from her insight. As such, there was no choice but to give her authentic information, but it also leads to a greater problem. The reason why the prideful Princess Phineas will come to be called as the Princess of Love, after facing failure during the class placement test and falling to Class F, she would then begin to change. But she who has great control over the early scenario finds the golden bead and enters the Class A, causing the scenario of the original story to collapse. And so, even if he managed to avoid being expelled, all the information he has would then become useless, and he would be done for. But of course, the top of the class is instead Lucy Merrill. And so, the future might not still change. Phineas gets a flashback and thinks that Ed didn't lie to her. There really was a bead. But this is not a present. The reason why Princess Phineas wanted to hide her identity in the first place was due to her being embarrassed of the special treatment she would be receiving if her identity was exposed. She wanted to prove herself. She knew just by seeing the bead that it would offer the best results in the test, but she couldn't take it, as finding it would be something that she did not accomplish on her own. The title, Princess of Love, she would receive in the future, is not a skill or a stat, but a title she would gain by walking the righteous path. Ed only threw a bait at the princess. Whether it was a lie or a truth likely didn't matter. The princess can always discern what it is. Even if Ed really believed that the princess would fail the test, Phineas still had confidence in succeeding and rubbing it in his face. However, Ed did not lie, as she wasn't able to enter Class A. And now, the princess could no longer do anything, as we see Phineas saying that she would be keeping an eye on Ed. Back to Ed, we see he finally caught another fish for himself. Now, sometime later, we see Ed running towards the school, as he is living in a place where he has to start running from early in the morning to get to school on time. But he finally arrives at Sylvania Academy. Now at the school, we see their opening ceremony is going on, and students are to listen while they enjoy the prepared food. Other students starts commenting about Ed, who are disgusted by him, saying, how could he even show his face here after doing such? And Ed can hear those sweet whispers welcoming him, who had survived. But he focuses on eating, calling it the reward for the victor, and enjoys it all slowly. Some of the students are different, as they notice that Ed feels different and also eats quite mannerly. And as he hears other students making their plans, Ed thinks that his goal isn't anything grand. He just wants to graduate. And right as he wishes for nothing to happen, we see him catching the attention of a pink-haired waifu, who comments and finds it strange that Ed feels like a different person. Today is the first day of school at Sylvania. We see the instructor giving a small speech to students. And on the very first day, Ed was almost expelled. He didn't expect Edfenia to tell the dean about him, but from the way the dean was smiling while talking, it seems that she didn't said anything bad. But regardless, he barely managed to avoid it, and so he decides to be careful so that the storyline doesn't stray from the original. Life skills honed for survival and magic training appropriate for a student of the Faculty of Magic. To get the best of these two, there is no better weapon than a bow. And as his life skills become more proficient and he become able to create good quality arrows, he would be able to cast spirit or magic formulas on the arrows. And as he is hunting the rabbit, he encounters a girl sitting under a tree. And seeing her, he thinks that the spirit formulas are outside the realm of his talent, as this girl is apparently a genius spirit sorcerer, Janica Faylover. She also notices Ed and asks, isn't he the amusing guy that Marilda was talking about? She quickly gets over to him and introduces herself as Janica Faylover. She is in the second year, same year as him, and he can call her Janica. She then asks if he is surprised that she knows about him, and answers herself that this whole forest is the territory of Marilda, a high-ranking spirit, so she heard a lot about him from her, and Ed confirms if the master of this forest told her about him. And Janica replies that Marilda is kind of nosy. With her attention all over the place, it is obvious that she knows about an unwanted visitor. And so, Ed starts to get nervous as heard himself get called unwanted visitor, realizing that he killed a lot of them and cut so many trees as well. But Janica tells him to not sweat the small stuff, since it's natural order for creatures to catch and eat each other, and Marilda isn't bothered by that either. Hearing which, Ed comments that even the huge wild wolf has a tender heart. Hearing which, she chuckles and says, unexpected, isn't it? She then says that there is something that she wants to show him and brings her hands forward, asking if isn't it adorable, she signed a contract with him. And asks if he wants to touch him. Ed wonders if it's a spirit she is talking about. And he thinks that if he want to be friends with Janica, he needs to chime in at the right time. But he tells Janica that he don't know what she means. He cannot see spirits. Janica seems a bit taken back about that, and Ed leaves once again confirming that. And Ed notes that only by following the original storyline can he gain an informational advantage. Janica Faylover is someone who holds significant importance in the original storyline, and is someone that he must never get close to. And as she sees him walking, her expression seems a bit sad. And she remembers him saying about that line about a wolf, and she rubs one of her spirits, while telling Marilda that it's just as she said, he is really an interesting guy. But no matter how much she thinks about it, she really thinks that he cannot see her, as she questions, who is he? And also she gets a bit annoyed that she tried so hard to be kind, yet he just answers, yep, and all that. But regardless, she doesn't believe that they want meet again. So she can just find what kind of person he is from now on. Back to Ed, who notes that the distance between his shelter and the student area wasn't close at all. He barely make it in time, leaving at dawn and running at full speed. Just by commuting to school, he is doing something ridiculous that increases his stats. And if he wants to win the scholarship, then he would have to study more diligently. And he wrote on a stone slab using a burned stick and borrowed books from the student library. On his way home, he was his sweaty clothes for daily wear, and while one would think that he is done for the day, but he is not. He has to check if he has enough firewood, drinking water, and jerky for tomorrow's lunch, and he can only sleep for 4 hours because of this. But it is not what is bothering him the most, as he finally calls Janica out, asking how long is she going to keep following him. Janica, in surprise, asks if he knew, and Ed replies that it would be stranger if he didn't. He tries to scare her away by saying that she should know who he is, the worst hooligan to exist, Ed Roth Taylor, and asks, why does she hang around him? And she replies that it's the other people's judgment, isn't it? And she herself don't even know him yet. And so, Ed remembers that Janica was indeed that kind of character. She may look naive and dumb on the outside, but she is really independent-minded. However, knowing what is in the store for her in the future, he cannot just respond to her with a refreshing smile on his face. Because Janica Faylover is the final boss of Act 1. She is the only character who smiles to Ed Roth Taylor. And while he didn't want to go this far either, and so he tells her that since destiny brought them together, can she do him a favor, and Janica gets happy and excited hearing that. And Ed continues that as she can see that he is a mess, he has been disowned by his family and is also in a pinch. So, can she lend him some money, and he would pay her back as well, though this favor seems to break Janica. Every year, Janica gets a scholarship for being top of the class, but that doesn't just signify her excellence. Her background is so poor that without that scholarship, she cannot enroll or advance to higher graduation in school, the daughter in a small ranch. Janica, this is her weakness. And hearing about money, Janica starts to break away while apologizing to Ed. And with that, Ed thinks that with that, he has cut her out. Now 3 days later, Ed still doesn't feel great about what he did, but he don't want to get entangled with the important characters anymore. He plans to be careful so that the story doesn't stray from the original. And as he arrives in his shelter, he seems to have seen something inside as his basket falls from his back. In shock, he lets out a "what the hell" expression, thinking that in terms of importance, she is a character with an even heavier presence than Janica. The subject of marvel of her classmates and even professors, the rare genius and the most powerful character of the game, Lucy Merrill. Lucy then wakes up, as Ed wonders, why is she sleeping here, and what is she even doing in this forest, as she says that it is so loud that she cannot sleep. And as Ed asks, what did he do? She replies, she is not talking about him, and instead points behind Ed, saying that the wolf over there, which is as big as a house, is keep trying to talk to Ed, hearing which shocks him, and it's asking Ed to someday save Janica at all costs. But even if she were to say that, Ed is unable to see anything. But regardless, just when he thought that he finally got rid of Janica, another problem knocked on his shelter, as he wonders, why is she sleeping here? She then again starts going back to sleep, saying that she said what she needed to, though Ed tries to stop her. Ed then remembers something, that she uses space magic to jump from places to places with her tiny body, and it makes her area of activity like that of a street cat. She can always go to places like the clock tower and roofs in good locations with good lighting where she can nap whenever she wants. And in this case, his camp is in the northern forest of Arkan Island, a remote place that no one comes to. But for her, it's not too remote. It is cool wind and sound of the river, a perfect place to take a nap while skipping class. And so, it makes Ed realize that he only has himself to blame for it. Now on the next day again, he looks up in the sky, and we see something coming for him, as he thinks that he needs some kind of method. And it's Lucy, who used multicasting with 5 or 6 different high-level spells just to come flying and fall asleep, as he notes that it's only a matter of time till the flow of story gets ruined if she continues to stay here. We then see him creating more stuff, while Lucy gets up and asks if she can eat that beef jerky, but Ed declines. But she eats it regardless, annoying Ed, as he realizes that she won't listen to a reason, and the fact that she came here twice means she would keep coming. He needs to find a method, but out of all the countless strategy posts he has seen, there was no method of defeating Lucy. However, he has something, as he tells Lucy, that while he was coming here, he saw the Awfulest hall maids looking for her, hearing which scares Lucy. And so, she tells Ed that she suddenly remembered something urgent to do and takes her leave. There is no strategy to defeat her, but there was a sentence in the setup guide that everyone skipped. That states that Lucy runs away from the maids who take care of her like a mother, every single day. And with that, he believes that Lucy Merrill is finally out. And since she only has been in the camp for 2 days, it thinks that it shouldn't lead to anything, though it didn't take long for him to realize how complacent of a thought it was. Now fast forward, and we are at the joint combat training. It's a literal mock one-on-one combat exercise. To minimize the lethality as much as possible, the combat students use fake weapons, while the magic students are only allowed to use basic elemental magic, and the alchemy students are restricted from using potions and spirit formulas that are too strong. The grades are mixed, and the list of matches is randomized into one-on-one battles. Above all the important characters partake in this class. Benevolent Princess, Phenia, Golden Daughter, Lortel, Spirit Sorcerer, Janica, Slothful Lucy, and Wicked Clebius. He could go on, and the list wouldn't end. And even then, the most important person is the protagonist, the failed swordsman, Taylor. Ed gets excited thinking that Taylor's match is next. But he already knows the results, so he didn't pay much attention to matches, since the winners of the duels were all first years, like the protagonist, Taylor. Except for one person, Janica, who is a second-year student, as she excitedly greets Ed. Ed is quite annoyed, thinking that he cannot believe that she is running all happily to him despite going through the pathetic experience of him asking her money, and unlike Lucy, who is like a cat, Janica is more like a dog, as she tells Ed. That list of matches are out. But he tells her that he is not interested, so Janica asks if he is not interested in his match. Hearing which shocks Ed, thinking, does he have to fight as well? He realizes that Ed in the original storyline was already expelled by now, and so he wonders who is going to be his opponent. And it's none other than Princess Phinia. Suddenly, an announcement is made, asking Lucy and Taylor to prepare for their duel, hearing which, Ed stands up in excitement. And as Taylor enters the arena, he states with determination that he would perform to the best of his ability. And for Ed, right now it doesn't matter who he is fighting against, because he needs to pay attention to Taylor. Even though it was from a world beyond the screen, he lived as Taylor for several lifetimes, from miserable and vain bad endings to true endings that left long-lasting impressions. He has completed them many times, and among the countless routes, there wasn't a single route that wasn't arduous and difficult. And while he has already decided on taking care of his own life, but he will still be cheering him on. And once again, as an announcement for Lucy to come on stage, Ed is confused. As he wonders, where did Lucy went to? He looks down and finds a backup podium, where she seems to be sleeping, and Ed goes on to wake her up. He notes that at this, if the match doesn't happen, he would be in trouble, as this is an important event that inspires Taylor to first pick up the sword. Lucy tells him that she is hungry, and if she can have the beef jerky from last time. And Ed tells her to go and finish up her duel first. And so, it's Lucy, first year, at the top of her class versus Taylor McClure, the protagonist of this world, born to be a swordsman, who has never held a sword before in his life, but with the first swing of his sword, he cuts through Lucy's lightning-quick magic, and the spell she had thought would obviously hit was blocked and caught her off guard. And Taylor took advantage of this and quickly closed the distance. Surprised by this, Lucy hits him with a lightning strike, an intermediate-level lightning magic. Taylor is overpowered by that reflexively cast magic. But Lucy is disqualified for using intermediate-level magic, earning Taylor the honor of being the first person to ever defeat Lucy Merrill. And for Ed, it was a legendary scene. And so, the instructors opens up the match. Taylor immediately rushes in towards Lucy without any weapon, and she blasts him away onto the wall behind. And it surprises everyone, while Lucy isn't even completely woken up from her sleep. Students around comments, if it's over already, stating that it's not possible to win against the top of the class, and makes fun of Taylor for rushes towards a mage barehanded like that. Ed remembers that Taylor's life was always a series of trials, a country bumpkin, and a failure of student. An underachiever who hadn't gotten a single decent grade since he started school, a failure that was acknowledged by anyone. And while everyone jumped to the conclusion regarding the match, even in the midst of such despair, Taylor never lost hope as he stands back up. Ed also grins seeing him as he cheers him on in his mind. His shout, that was of a swordsman who never gave up on his life until the end. This was what touched everyone's heart. And we see Lucy being surprised by Taylor's attack. And Ed thinks that now, Lucy would use her lightning magic, but gets surprised instead. As we see Lucy is able to block his attack right as it was about to reach her. And with her attack, Taylor is sent flying. And as he crashes onto a ceiling all the way to the top. As Lucy used wind magic instead of lightning magic, which Ed doesn't remembers. And she is also announced as the winner, as the whole crowd cheers her on. Meanwhile, Ed is stunned seeing Taylor lose. Now we see Taylor walking away from the arena, with the spark in his eyes exhausted. An overwhelming difference in power can be like getting struck by lightning. Ed realizes that it could be really bad. Leaving him alone now is the worst option. The Storm's Blessing, a passive magic spell which one can gain when they make a contract with Marilda, the high-level wind spirit. Lucy tries asking Ed for that jerky, but Ed ignores her and runs past her, remembering that Marilda and Lucy never crossed path in the original story. And Lucy ended up making a contract with Marilda and getting stronger after staying at his camp. Meanwhile, the announcer announces the match between Ed and the Princess Phinia. He encounters her on the way, and she tries to ask him about what happened before, but he ignores her as well, thinking that Taylor should have won. He was supposed to take up the sword and get a confidence boost. Meanwhile, Phinia is surprised seeing Ed like this. And Ed blames himself for Taylor losing, it was because he was still at the academy. He calls out to Taylor, thinking that what he is doing might not do anything, but it's better than nothing. And hearing his voice, Taylor halts and looks back, as Ed tries to motivate him with his words in front of everyone. Thinking that if Ed is so discouraged that he falls into a pit of despair, then there is a high chance that he would end up having to go through the hell instead. And in the end, he tells Taylor to not despair over something so trivial, as he remembers that there are too many ridiculous events to get through at this academy, and Taylor needs to be the one to suffer through them, since Ed doesn't want to. We switch to Phineas, as the Emperor Crowell tells Phineas that she was given God's blessing at birth, and he was also the first person to realize that she had an ability to discern lies. But her ability of hers wasn't God-given at all. Life at the place was a continuous cycle of veiled enmity and hidden schemes. And Phineas acquired this ability to discern lies in order to protect herself within this dark abyss. And so, Princess Phineas had complete faith in her own ability. Among the gazes looking up at the princess in apparent respect at the place was actually an unmistakable corrupt darkness, but even as she saw through all the lies, she still spent her life pretending not to notice. We come back to the present, as Ed and Phineas about to begin their duel, where Ed tells her that he is honored to face her in battle. And because of all that, she couldn't help but look at Ed in the eye, as she replies the same thing to him. Other students around them comments about Ed's behavior towards Taylor, thinking that he is trying to look nice and have some kind of underhanded motive, and was always a terrible person. Princess Phineas agrees with them, thinking that he indeed is a shameful person who used his status to try and humiliate younger students. And when that didn't work, he tried to meddle with their exam and was caught red-handed. But at least she thinks it was how he used to be like, and upon remembering her recent encounters with him, she wonders if that is really all to him. When he followed Taylor earlier, his desperation was real. And now as their duel commences, Phineas tells Ed that he is a distraction, and she would like to put an end to that with this duel. She uses her water magic, noting that Ed uses wind and fire magic, and she wonders, how will he block her attack? She plans to exchange blows with him until he can just let go of her distracting thoughts. And by the time their intense battle is over, she should be able to see through his mysterious motives, but Ed doesn't counter and instead gets hit. And it leaves her dumbfounded as Ed simply crashes on the ground afterwards and admits his defeat, which shocks Phineas. She knew that he could see where her water attack was headed and didn't block it still. Meanwhile, other students in the stands starts to mock and make fun of him for acting tough and getting down in one blow. But regardless, he bows down in front of her, saying that he learned a lot from this, and right as she is about to ask him something, she is hit with a realization that this whole time, ever since he stepped on the stage, he hasn't even met her eyes once. Realizing that he wasn't interested in fighting at all. After the duel, he quickly rushes off, thinking that whenever he runs into Princess Phineas, the key is to act in a way that won't affect the main story, because she is an incredibly important character in the game. But the one person who is even more important is Taylor, the protagonist of this world. He tries to frantically search for him, wondering, where did he went? But suddenly, someone calls him out as he glances back. And we see it's Phineas, who is panting heavily chasing after him, as Ed tells her that she shouldn't have came all the way here without her guard. But she angrily asks him, what is wrong with him? And Ed replies that he has no idea what is she referring to. And as he brings up the duel, she angrily states that he had no interest in fighting at all. All he was thinking was to get off the stage quickly. She starts to vent that her workload of all of her class is big enough. But the merchant girl keeps trying to take over the academy. Professor Glass is ill-tempered as ever, and the staff here keeps harping on about imperial laws. She starts to blow up, saying that she got so much on her mind already. Yet he keeps distracting her like this, hearing which Ed thinks that he didn't expect her life to be so complicated. Ed holds onto her shoulder and tells her to calm down, as there's no need to get agitated. He instructs her to take deep breaths, which she does. She then blushes and gets embarrassed, telling Ed to forget what just happened. Meanwhile, Ed wonders if he can leave now, but Phineas continues that it's a bad habit of hers, saying that she should ask people outright about her suspicion, instead of keep trying to find out what their true motives are and jumping to conclusions. Though she gives the reason that it's probably because she grew up in such place, while Ed really wants her to let him go, as he needs to find Taylor. And Phineas tells Ed that she won't beat around the bush with him anymore, stating that he was trying to get disowned by his family on purpose, because he knew that his family had a dark side, and he bullied Taylor because he needed a good enough reason to get disowned. Ed notes that is quite a sharp deduction, though half of it is wrong. But it is true that his family have a dark side. But he acts oblivious, stating that he don't know anything about that, thinking that it's something that she needs to find out by investigating in the future. But Penia doesn't believe him, since his behavior right now doesn't make sense, asking why did he try to cheer up Taylor earlier, stating that he never had any ill will towards Taylor, isn't it? Ed calls it a good question, but regardless, he lies that he thought cheering him on will make people see him differently, and Penia clearly calls out it as a lie. He keeps trying to make up the same argument, but her insight keeps detecting it all as a lie, making Penia annoyed. Ed can say all this because he knows that she doesn't have any proofs yet, and the only advantage he had in this world is that he knows the story, so he must not change thing. And so, Penia agrees, saying that she has no proof right now, so she cannot refute him, and gives him permission to leave, as she noticed that he was staring at the door for this whole time, and so he must be in a hurry. And so he starts to leave while thanking her, and noting that he has never seen her like this before. As considering how much influence she has on the first half of the game, and how many characters and incidents she is involved in, and that perhaps him also being added to the story broke her back completely, and while there is not much that he can do for her, he turns back and tells her that whatever burdens he carries cannot be more heavier than the weight she must be carrying. So while it may be presumptuous for him to say, but she seems exhausted, paying attention to politics and all are important, but she should try taking it easy. As it's not the Imperial Court where she must be constantly on her toes, it's Sylvania Academy. Penia spent her whole life constantly seeing through people's life, but this was the first time someone saw through her facade. Fast forward, and we see Ed is still on search for Taylor, and he finally finds him sitting on a bench, though as he is wondering what should he tell him. But suddenly, a girl comes forward, telling Ed to not get any closer, and to stop bullying Taylor already, and this girl is Isla Triss, the main female lead of this game. Taylor also stands up, commenting if Ed is still at the academy. As Ed realizes that Taylor has already recovered, his fighting spirit that won't give in no matter what. While he was dealing with Princess, his childhood friend and biggest supporter, Isla Triss must have gone to him without any hesitation, as we see her cheering up Taylor and motivating him to do better and not give up. Taylor asks Ed, what business does he have with him? Meanwhile, Ed thinks that as long as he is Ayla, Taylor will get back on his feet as many times as needed. And so, Ed compliments him that his sword fighting was impressive, and Taylor asks, what is he playing at? Ed thinks that he has played this game countless times, and has been through his side countless times, so he should be more honest with himself as he turns back telling Taylor that it's nothing like that. Ed thought that he could just leave saving the world to him and focus on his survival. He took him for granted for being the main character. But now he was relieved, not because things went back to how they were in the original story, but Taylor, whom he spent a lot of time as, was doing well, which is enough for him. Though Ed acting cool discussed them both, with Ed thinking that he cannot blame them for reacting like that. And suddenly, as Ed is walking back, he hears a loud explosion, as we see a huge pillar of flame rises above in the sky, seeing which Ed comments, if it's that time already. It's a scene which they should be witnessing from the audience seat with everyone else. The duel between Lordle, the Golden Daughter, and Janica, the Elementalist. While it might be a little different from the way things were supposed to happen, but he is sure that Taylor and Ayla are watching it as well, as it is one of the many hardships that he would have to overcome, as she is the final boss of the first act, Janica Pale Rover. After winning her duel, everyone surrounds her and congratulates her, shoring her with praises and compliments. And she thanks everyone for it. Suddenly, she hears the medics asking everyone to give way for the patient. And she sees Lordle being quite injured due to the duel with her, which causes her to get scared and shocked. With Taylor losing to Lucy, unlike the original story, the center of attention in joint combat training ended up becoming Janica, for upholding the pride of the older students. She had many friends to begin with, but it looks like she would be surrounded by more as a result of this. Though, Ed thinks that it might be for the best, but regardless, he believes that he won't be seeing her at his camp anytime soon. Since getting involved in the storyline of main characters complicate things, and now it has been 2 weeks already since the joint training. Without the interference of the main characters, he has been able to focus on his own survival, and he is able to get enough food with the fishing net. And he also feels like that he gained some muscles from raising his strength stat as well. But the standard for high stats is raising them to 10, so he cannot get complacent now. We then see Janica, who is again watching Ed from a bush and blushing seeing him naked, and asks if he likes walking around half naked, and Ed replies that she is the one who popped out of nowhere. At the campfire, he asks her why did she came here, and she replies that it's like her secret hideout, so it feels like an adventure to her whenever she comes here. And she also wanted to talk some more and wanted to get some advice from him. Though Ed wonders, why is it him out of all the people in the academy? She replies that he left early so he might have not seen it, but during the joint combat training, she injured someone. But Ed knows that it was because her opponent used an intermediate level magic first, though that wouldn't matter to Janica, who is kind-hearted by nature. She continues that no matter how hard she tries to get over it, she keeps wondering if she went too far, and these doubts is keeping her awake. She then asks Ed if she should apologize to her, but whenever she tries to, her friend stops her, saying that she did something wrong first. But Ed tells her to do it then, if she thinks that it's the right thing to do. She is quite surprised hearing that. Janica is a student who is treasured by everyone, so if she ever starts feeling guilty or blames herself, everyone chimes in to take her side. But Janica knows that while it's nice that her friends are taking her side, it doesn't remove her of any blame that she ought to take responsibility for. Which is probably the reason that she came to Ed asking for advice, as she tells him that she knew he was different, as he never just take his side without question. And Ed replies, if it bothers her then it's too bad, and she declines, saying that it's not what she meant. It doesn't bother her at all, as she thinks that Ed wasn't like this last year. While Janica seemed carefree at all times, she did notice things as well. Even when Ed asked her for money, he didn't seem desperate enough, as he had clearly been trying to put some distance between them. Janica finds his opinion quite relieving, as she smiles while saying that she wished everyone in the world was more like him, and watching Ed act like this was something that gave her a strange sense of peace. Now on the next day, Ed seems to be quite nervous and thinks that he is in trouble. Sylvania's failed swordsman may have been praised as a masterpiece, but very few players ever got to the true ending. Newbies in particular was faced with various bad endings at the very start. For example, if you save a girl getting attacked during the class assignment exam, you find out the Golden Daughter's secret. She then sends someone to kidnap Taylor, and it leads to a bad ending 3. And if instead of choosing Taylor's childhood friend Isla during the extermination training, you get paired up with the Golden Daughter, and reach another bad ending, as Taylor is supposed to save Ayla from falling of a cliff. And if you protect the Golden Daughter from Taken, the fire spirit summoned by Janica, Taylor gets burned to death. And we see someone is calling out to Ed, while he thinks that he needs to get away from this girl. He then asks her, how long is she planning to follow him, and she replies that she didn't expect him to be so intent on ignoring her. Meanwhile, Ed thinks that he is of course intent on ignoring her. She is one of the 4 female leads of Sylvania's failed swords master, the only child of the business mogul, Elk Cahelland, Lord Cahelland, the Golden Daughter, also known as the newbie Shredder, as she tells Ed that she would like to purchase 2 hours of his time while grinning. Unlike the other main female characters, Lortel Cahelland's route is hidden. And unlike Penia, she is treated as a villain from the beginning, whose true nature is revealed in the latter half of the game. And as soon as you understand Lortel's pain and struggle as a realist, the player is forced to make a choice between Penia and Lortel, and while he is monologuing all this, Lortel tries to call him out. But he completely ignores her, noting that he cannot let that silver tongue win him over right now, and if he follow along her intentions, he would end up being controlled by her. But she doesn't let him be, and asks to listen to her once, and she would like to help him out a little, but he tells her to not say things that she don't mean, and Lortel replies that she was just trying to show how much respect she has for him. She then gets in front of him, stating that she is really moved by his strong will. She finds it really impressive that he wished to keep studying when he is faced with such harsh environment. Though, it's not like she hadn't heard rumors about him being cocky and self-centered, but to her it doesn't matter, as she laughs while saying. She requests to listen to her offer, and starts up with 3 gold coins, saying that she heard that he is quite close with Janica these days, so she would like him to help befriend her. And the amount she is giving is enough money some hard-working people make in a month according to Ed. But he gets up close to her face, and tries to take a jab at her for making use of her money as the Golden Daughter to make connections. but she slips the money into his pocket, telling him to hold on to these for now, as she is well aware of the fact that the more people she has on her side, the better. Ed realizes that Lortel already has a hunch on what might happen in the future, that she will be getting into a political battle against Princess Peenia over control of the academy, and that she needs to start making alliances now. And so, Ed smirks and reaches for a handshake with Lortel. Lortel also smirks, thinking that those who grew up in abundance can grow weak-willed after just a moment of misfortune. And what is most effective against these people who are pushed to the edge is something simple as a single coin. Because she believes that they sell their families for sake of one gold, and sell of their own pride and even themselves for money. Therefore, taking over someone who is that desperate is very simple and easy. But unfortunately, it didn't work. And it causes her to turn back towards Ed and smile while calling him interesting. Meanwhile, Ed grits his teeth, thinking that if he had accepted that money, he would have been much better off. It's a shame, but if he were to put the newbie crusher with Janica, there is no telling what fresh new horrors would await him, so he needs to avoid anything that could change the main story. Now on the same night, Lortel was not insulted at all by Ed's rejection, as we see her greeting Janica at night, saying that it's fancy meeting her here, while Janica replies that she looks so different with her hair down. For the business-minded girl, Lortel, who always considered gains and losses as well as pros and cons, Ed's rejection only fueled her desire to get Janica over on her side. She is apparently here to apologize for the use of intermediate magic back in their duel, stating that she just wanted to see how strong the top student of the second-year class was. And upon noticing her wounds, Janica expresses her concern, and Lortel replies that she had to pay a high price for what she did, and tells Janica to not worry, as they would heal up soon, with Lortel thinking that maybe she can influence her more easily if she plays on her guilt, since she is a lot like a protagonist in a fairy tale. Suddenly, Janica tells Lortel that it seems her conversation with Ed didn't work out. It surprises Lortel, as Janica smiles while saying that she was going to respect her privacy. But many of her spirits are quite chatty. They tell her almost anything that goes in near the forest in the north. Lortel starts sweating nervously, asking if it means she knows about that. Janica gets up close to her, saying that sincerity cannot be bought with money, and she thinks that what Ed did was much more touching. She then again starts acting goofy, apologizing for sounding too arrogant, stating that she has never been someone's upperclassman, so it's quite embarrassing, while Lortel decides to reevaluate her view of her. Janica starts to leave, saying that she has a lot to prepare her to make a contract with high-ranking spirit. As more people are cheering her on, she has to do her best for them. And Lortel realizes that she was wrong for calling Janica a fairy tale protagonist, and her being ignorant of the world is also a wrong assumption. Janica also calls to Lortel and apologizes for injuring her badly that day, and wishes for her to get better soon, while Lortel notes that she is someone who keeps up a cherry attitude, even though she knows all of the darkness the world holds. And so, Lortel realizes that she is difficult to handle. But Lortel also notices that just now, Janica seemed a little off. Inside her room, Janica is telling herself to do her best, stating that the fact that everyone expects great things from her is a good thing after all. Fast forward to morning, and we hear Lucy sweating and saying that she is smelling something. She quickly flies off afterwards, dirtying all of Ed's laundry again. Ed glances to his side, as someone asks, who is there, and we see it's the senior maid of Awfulest Hall, Sylvania Academy's grandest dormitory, Belle Maya. And she is also the maid who kicked Ed out. Ed tries to explain, and Maya comments that she knew that he was living here, as Lady Janica speaks about him often, though she didn't expect for him to be living like this. But regardless, she expresses that she is glad to see the change of good in him. But for Ed, it's hard for him to listen to what Belle Maya is saying, because his eyes keeps getting drawn to something else. The maids of the Awfulest Hall are an elite group, who perform every household task to perfection for the students, including cooking. And the contents of Maya's basket have to be the finest ingredients an elite maid like her gathered personally from the forest. In other words, high-level foraging information that cannot be found in books. Maya tells Ed to not be so formal with her, telling him to treat her poorly like he did back at the hall, but Ed declines from doing so. She is surprised hearing that, as Ed tries to butter her up, saying that he cannot treat her poorly when she always works so hard, as he remembers that there is no scene in the game which involves Belle Maya, which means that extras can get acquainted with her without any issue, as he starts to ask about the content of her basket. And so, Maya tells her all about various edible fruit, mushrooms, and herbs. And he also created a fish net for fish farming. So now he has more meat and fish. He is pretty much set. And even though he only knows 2 basic spells, but using them over and over has allowed him to level them up to 10. He also ends up making herbal tea and used those spells for cutting wood and cooking, so his survival efficiency has increased a lot. It's evident by the fact that even though he is done with all of his tasks, the sun still haven't set yet, and he has also started to enjoy this. But in the sky, he notices something shining bright, and that something comes crashing down on his tent at high speeds. The impact causes Ed to get sent flying away as well. He questions, what on earth did they do to his shelter? And as the smoke clears up, we see it's Lucy who states that she almost died just now. Hearing her say that, Ed asks, to whom, as she is the world's strongest mage. And she shudders in fear while replying, it's Belle Maya, though Ed only knows her as a good person. Lucy says that all she did was skip classes as usual, but she got really pissed and started walking towards her with her fist clenched tighter than usual. She don't know who, but Maya seems to be worried about someone. And it was so sudden that she escaped with teleportation magic before she knew it, and it looked like it would hurt. Ed starts to get really pissed, wondering, what kind of ordeals does Belle Maya goes through? And when Lucy asks him if she can have that beef jerky, Ed smacks her on the head, stating that she blew it all away just now. Lucy lets out a soft ouch, and Ed notices that her magic barrier didn't activate. She tells Ed that she has completely ran out of mana. Hearing which, Ed gets up to hit her some more, with his first flick being for the shelter that she destroyed, and the second one for the benevolent Belle Maya. Fast forward, and Ed thinks that he needs a sturdier house, and for that, he would need to build something out of proper lumber. And for someone who has to use every moment of their day wisely, it would be best for him to get all the information he needs from the library in one go. He found the architectural design, and now he needs to find how to prepare the lumber and roof. A girl then walks up to him, telling him that it's time to close up the library and that he is studying really hard, and he apologizes for staying late. She tells him that it's all right, as seeing him focus really inspires her to study as well, and introduces herself as Elka Island. Seeing her expression, Ed notes that she looks like she really wants him to introduce himself as well. And when he tells her his name, she seems quite terrified at first, and Ed notes that he is used to that reaction, and that his bad reputation has no sign of fading, though he is too busy to do something about it anyways. But much to his surprise, Elka says that he is much different from the rumors. As he is reading through those elemental books which he finds hard to understand in a matter of days, and he even managed to read 6 of them just today. She used to hear that he was a beggar, but she smiles, saying that the rumors are really unreliable. She also tells him that she knows someone as well who works really hard as well, and so she would be rooting for him, and Ed thanks her for that. And just as she is leaving, suddenly everything starts to rumble, as Ed wonders what happened. Elka seems to be standing in between 2 huge bookshelves, and it starts to fall on her. And we see that the final chapter of Act 1 is here. The fight against Glaskin begins. Now at 11:30 a.m. temporary post in front of the student halls, thanks to Taylor, quite a few students were able to make it to this post. And 2 hours have passed since this disaster has occurred, as we see one of the girls saying that she has read about it in a book. It's a magic circle meant to summon Glaskin, the highest-ranking spirit of darkness. Penia calls it bad news, and says there is only one person with high enough spirit sense to summon such a powerful spirit. And so, it's very likely that their enemy is the second-year top student, whose power went out of control due to the spirit of darkness, Janica Failover. Taylor speaks up that they have no time to waste. If Ayla is right, the barrier around the academy wing is just a way to buy time. Once Glaskin is summoned, there will be many casualties, so they need to get inside the student halls. Claire, the Imperial Guard captain, says that guards outside will soon notice it, and if they and the professor gets in the barrier, it would be resolved quickly. But Elvira Aniston says that if a high-ranking spirit made it, then the barrier would be really strong, so they would have to take care of it from the inside. And if everyone here works together, she believes that they do have a chance. Clevius is scared and is totally against this idea, asking if she wants them to get past those mid-ranking spirit and animals before infiltrating the building and take down Janica. And there are high-ranking spirits as well, two of them at that, Taken and Velisper, both of them have gone berserk, which Clevius considers suicide and hence refuses to go. Lortel asks if Penia is sure that she did that by herself. Even though she is at top of the year, it's still too much, as she is manifesting glass skin and a number of high-ranking spirits at the same time. Ayla says that it's most probably Velisper's power. Janica must be nothing more than a medium. Dark spirits are the natural enemy of Elementalist. They are incredibly strong, which is why Elementalist cannot control them. They are like demons that seek to control the Elementalist, which is why Elementalist must keep their hearts pure, otherwise they would be consumed. So the question is, how did Velisper took control of Janica, who is so good at the summoning magic? Zig speaks up, saying that it's not what important right now. They should decide what to do next. Either they wait until the professors get in or act themselves. And the one who should make that decision should be Princess Penia, according to him. Everyone awaited her decision, and in that moment, she suddenly thought what that boy told her in passing. The time when Ed told her try and take it easy. She thought that it would be great if she could take it easy as he said, and she tells everyone that they will enter the building in 1 hour. But only she, her knight Claire, and the top students from each year, and those from Class A will go. It would be only those who have proven their capability. And she also decides to take full responsibility for what happens. One of the students comes rushing, saying that they have determined the number of students left in each building. Both Audrey Hall and the Magic Potion Depository are under siege, so they cannot join them. And so, Penia realizes that they are the only ones who can act right now, as the student says that they don't know of any other students. But a purple-haired girl shouts that they do, as her apprentice librarian and a second-year student are still in the student library, and Penia asks for the names. And she replies, it's Elka Island, hearing which shocks Zix, as the girl tells him that they were learning how to take care of magic books there. He tries to leave immediately to save her, as she has no way of defending herself. Lortel tries to stop him, saying that while she knows about his relationship with her, but he is the strongest out of all of them present, so they cannot let him go anywhere. Penia agrees, saying that besides, she is with a second-year student as well, and that perhaps they should try trusting this second-year student, and it makes Ziggs hesitate a bit, and he seems to be leaning towards staying here. Penia once confirms with the girl if she said that there was someone else with her, and she agrees but hesitates as she is trying to say something. Ziggs gets annoyed and asks her to spit out whatever she is hiding, and she replies that she is with Ed Roth Taylor, causing Ziggs to get pissed. She apologizes to him while crying, saying that Dushabag refuses to leave library even after dark, so she got irritated and left Elka to deal with him, since he is a terrible person. But Elka told her that she doesn't care about the rumors like that, and hence, and hearing that, everyone gets tense. Other students starts commenting how big of a problem it is if that librarian is stuck alone with that guy. Penia still tries to stop him and tells him to hold on, saying that how about they trust him anyways. And hearing her suggestion, everyone is left speechless. Ziggs doesn't say a word and quickly flies off towards the library. On the way, he encounters some spirits, but quickly takes care of them in anger, shouting that if Ed even dared to touch a strand of her hair, he would turn him into minced meat. We now get a flashback for Ziggs. He seems to be in a forest, hunting and locating his prey seemingly. He finds a big prey as he forages through the grass. The northern grasslands of the Empire, a barbaric land where the Emperor's rule hardly has any effect. A world where you must always watch your back, or you will meet your death. Ziggs was descended from the nomads who wandered through those lands. By the time he was old enough to fend for himself, he was already alone. He had no way of knowing when or why he was abandoned, or if he could ever go living in a community. Before he learned how to read, he learned how to kill a deer. Before he grasped how to buy things from a shop, he had to figure out how to get what he needed from an animal corpse on the wayside. His life was that of a wild beast. There he encountered Elka, who asks for his name, to which he replies, Ziggs. And with a smile on her face, she tells him that he looks like a wolf walking on 2 legs. It was when Ziggs realized something, that he had wandered the endless grasslands of the north as long as he could remember. He had survived on the corpses of animals on the road, and fallen asleep under the stars each night. He was a young wolf abandoned by his pack. His life has been so lonely as he realizes it with tears flowing from his eyes. That day, he met the person he wanted to be with for the rest of his life. Elka and her father welcomed him into the family. And as he began to adjust to the fast-paced civilized life, his time in the wilderness quickly faded into the distant past, and he turned from a young wolf into a human. But in order to protect her, he won't hesitate to become a beast again. He has heard the rumors about Ed, that he tried to tamper with someone's entrance exam, insulted the princess, and even harassed a younger student. He quickly rushes towards the library in panic, trying to find Elka. And on the way, he encounters Ed, who seems to be injured, as he grabs his collar and asks, "Where is Elka?" while Ed asks, "Why is he here right now?" But Sigs insists on getting Elka's location first, and Ed tells him that she is in reading room 3. He quickly leaves him and rushes towards her. He then notices her to be sleeping peacefully, and Ziggs finally gets relieved. And now that he looks at it, he notes that the bookshelf seems too heavy for even an adult to move, but they are placed around Elka as if to protect her. The blackout curtains are shut to avoid notice from the berserking spirits, and writings that says to stay calm and not leave this room once she awakes, that everything will be over before dawn, and that she should block the exit and avoid provoking the spirits, and she should think of her safety first and not do anything rash. It all makes him sure that someone made sure that Elka was safe. He then notices blood, and the fact that it's not from Elka, and realizes that it's the blood of someone who has injured himself but wrecked his body further to protect Elka instead of looking after his own safety. And that it was Ed Rothstaler, but he questions, why would he do this? We go back to 3 hours ago, when the shelves were falling. Ed was able to save her, as he is glad that he was training his body to get stronger and that things are happening faster than he anticipated. And judging by that summoning circle, the Glaskin subjugation arc must have started. But he is sure that Taylor would take care of that. He has to avoid paying any attention to where all the important characters are gathered up, because he has to avoid changing the future. But he still cannot waste this precious time, noting that soon numerous low-ranking spirits will cover the campus. So he needs to block the door so they can't come in here and take this opportunity to work on improving his shelter. And so, he plans to just snack on jerky and spend the night researching, but he suddenly realizes something. The reason Janika's ability is so special is because she has high proficiency in both spiritual understanding and spiritual resonance. But being able to see the spirits is an ability that needs to be unlocked first, so for someone like him who cannot even see them, raising his spiritual stats is impossible. However, Janika has just summoned countless spirits in physical form. In other words, it's a huge opportunity for him to farm experience, as he thanks Janika for it. With this, his skills improved at unbelievable rate. He already raised Ignite to level 12 and his Spirit-type magic to level 7. He needs just one more level, and if both his spiritual skills reach over 15 levels combined, then he could make a contract with Spirit as well. Though, he does believe that he did his best, and just then we see Six arriving and asking Ed, what was he doing here? Ed thinks that perhaps he couldn't leave him here because he is covered in injuries, and notes there is no need to lie and tells Zix that he was training. Though he does think that Zix won't believe him, but he does and tells Ed that he finally understands what kind of person he is, and that he was like this from the start. He then bows down to Ed, saying that he owes him a great debt, and he will repay it as soon as he gets the chance. Ed remembers that Zix and Elka are together. She is so important to his character that she is a named side character in the character info guide. He completely forgot this. But his role is to be Taylor's friend who sticks to his side until the very end. He is a very important character. And so, Ed tells him that judging by what is going on, Zix must have left behind everyone to come here. And now that he has ascertained Elka's safety, he should quickly head back. And he should also go and help Taylor, since if he do what he says, then everything will work out for the best. Zix confirms if he is talking about Taylor McClure, and Ed agrees. But Zix is confused and asks, he don't know why is Ed thinking so highly of him, as Zix himself has never talked to him. Ed replies that it's more about how useful he would be in this fight. It's because he is the only one who can get through the hard hide of high-ranking fire spirit, talking using his elemental slash. It's apparently his signature move, and he has to learn it in Chapter 9 of Act 1 to get through this chapter. Zix thanks him for the advice and leaves, while Ed thinks that giving him this much advice should get the wheels rolling along according to the story. But suddenly, Ed realizes something. He wonders, why is Zix not friends with Taylor yet? In Chapter 9 of Act 1, Taylor loses pretty badly to Zix, but manages to obtain the elemental slash to cut through Zix's magic. Zix is impressed by this, and they two become friends. But the final chapter of Act 1 has already begun a whole month before it was supposed to. The end of semester evaluation of Act 1. Chapter 9 has not even happened yet, which means Taylor and Zix aren't friends yet, and Taylor hasn't learned Elemental/Attack, meaning there isn't anyone among the attack unit who can deal any damage to Taken. Ed just hadn't realized it before, but the story he knew was already falling apart. Back to Student Square, Zix apologizes to everyone for being late. Penia replies that it's fine, because she is sure that even if he was with them, they would have been defeated, as their first infiltration attempt has failed already. Claire tells Penia to let his pain wear off once, and he would join her again then, but she tells him to rest. Claire argues that if she truly wishes to be considerate, then she should take back her order, and Penia frustratingly replies that she has a heart as well. Though, thankfully they manage to retreat in time. But Claire is down, and Clevius, the top first-year student, has also been injured. And as she is wondering what to do, she issues a new order to take down Taken with those who are left and try their best. But suddenly, Ed walks in, saying that they don't have enough time for all of them to focus on taking down Taken. And judging by the progression of that summoning circle, it won't take long for it to complete. This is something that was the last thing Ed wanted to do, but he is left with no choice. He finally steps in saying that they would divide in 2 teams and he would lead one of them, as he decides to get involved with the main story. Everyone is quite surprised upon seeing him here. Clevius speaks up, asking Ed if he is joking, but Zix stops him and tells him to let Ed speak. Ed explains that they need to get past Taken, the fire spirit summoned by Janica, before going up against Janica herself, who has been taken over by the dark spirit Velisper. But as they might know already from going up against Taken, its hide is too strong for any of them to damage it, so they shouldn't waste time in defeating it. So, one group will distract Taken while the other gets past to take down Janica in the training hall. Lortel is quite against it, stating that it's different from the one Janica summoned during the training duel. They were only able to escape by sheer luck. If the group distracting Taken fails or is eliminated, then the fire spirit will go after the attacking group, which means they would have to face both Velisper and Taken, making it too risky. Penia tells Lortel that she can something risky if she have a better option, as the most important objective is to take down Janica, as that way, Taken will also be incapacitated. Zix questions who would be the bait in this. Elvira says, whoever has a death wish basically. Taylor raises up his hand to be the bait, but Ed rejects, saying that he needs to be the part of the attacking unit going into the training hall. He tries to argue that he is fast, while he don't know how long he would be able to run. But if someone has to put their life on the line, it has to be him. But Ed tells him that he got it all wrong. As they are not picking out sacrificial lambs here, they don't have to divide their forces in half exactly. He picks out Clevius and Lortel with himself to be the one to lure Taken away, and both of them declines with a shocked face. But Ed tells them to trust him since he has a plan. Lortel isn't much in on the plan, and Selvius would rather die than team up with Ed. But Penia agrees with everything that Ed said, though she doesn't understand his motive. But regardless, she orders everyone in her name as the princess to divide into 2 groups. Taylor, Zix, Elvira, Alia, and herself will be going up against Janica, while Clevius, Lortel, and Ed will lure Taken away. And before leaving, she tells them to do not get themselves killed, no matter what. Now at the Nail Hall corridor, Lortel asks Ed, how is he intending to buy everyone time against that lizard, and he replies, to just do as he says, and as long as they stick to the plan, they would win for sure. He tells Clevius to not worry, saying that he would do just fine, while Clevius wonders, why is Ed so confident? Clevius is a cowardly and lacks confidence in his abilities, but he is the top student of the first-year combat department. And seeing Ed like this, Clevius wonders if he has some kind of surefire plan. And thinks Janica is in the training hall behind those doors, so they just need to distract Taken, as Ed told them. Clevius ended up coming here because the princess' steadfast attitude won him over. But at least he is not alone, which makes him smile, thinking that perhaps he can be brave this time. As they reach Taken, he roars loudly and starts charging up an attack. Clevius glances over, saying that the battle has begun. How do they lure it away now? But he finds them gone instead. It leaves him stunned, as Taken moves in closer behind him. He then quickly starts running in panic, saying that they tricked him, questioning, why would they do that to him? And he starts cussing at them both for this. Meanwhile, we see Lortel seems to be walking alone and heading somewhere. We go back a bit, as Ed tells her that they should get out of here, and they can have Clevius charge down the nail hall corridor. Lortel asks if he was planning to sacrifice Clevius all along. While it might work, he won't be able to avoid people questioning the morality of his decision, and he replies that he is not going to be sacrificed, as he is a top student, and he is incredibly durable. And also, she would be playing the most important part here. Now back to the present, at Nail Hall Outer Wall. Outside the training hall, Ed told her that she is in charge of forging a path for other group to get to Janica, and she would be the one dealing most damage to Taken. And after seeing Ed like this, Lortel thinks that one really shouldn't judge people by the rumors surrounding them. Ed also told her that while everyone would hesitate in doing this, but she is good at these kind of things, isn't she? So, she should just blow it all up. And it's exactly what Lortel does, and completely breaks down the wall using her ice magic. The attacking team is quite stunned from her doing that, as she asks them, what are they standing around for? Telling them that it's their time to shine now. Lortel remembers that she has done this thing before. She blew up the nail hall roof by using intermediate-level magic during the joint combat training, and which is why Ed left this to her. She then smirks and calls Ed quite amusing. But in any case, the other will be able to get through. And for the rest, she looks over to Clevius, who is still cursing Ed and running from Taken. Lortel thinks that even if they succeed and the attack unit gets into Nail Hall without dealing with Taken, Clevius and herself would have to go against Taken after luring it out. So is Ed trying to tell them to lure the fire spirit to the student square where they have no way to escape and will end up getting killed? Lortel questions. And Ed tells her that they cannot escape, and they have to defeat Taken. Lortel argues that no attack work against its hide, as he must have saw her during the combat training, and even when they tried earlier, they weren't able to harm it even after attacking together. But Ed replies that he can deal with the hide somehow. She just needs to charge up her magic attacks and be ready. And seeing the pouch in his hands, Lortel asks, what is that? Ed agrees with Lortel that without the elemental slash attack, none of them are able to pierce through Taken's hard hide. And so, what they need is overwhelming power. As we see that for that, he has come to Lucy, who is sleeping. The final chapter is difficult to begin with, so very few people have tried to clear all of the extra conditions, but he has done it countless times. Lucy speaks in her sleep, why is the ground wobbling? And to let her sleep some more, while Ed wonders, how is she even napping through all of this? After destroying his shelter and losing her favorite place to nap, Lucy came to this roof, her previous napping spot, but she was really napping through all these events because she had to be kept away from the main storyline. Janica is unwell, which causes Belle Maya to be on edge. So, Lucy uses all of her magic power while running away from Belle and falls asleep. This had to have been a way to make sure this overpowered character stays out of the final boss fight. But Ed takes out some beef jerky and Lucy quickly wakes up smelling them in excitement. He stuffs all of them into her mouth, telling her to have her fill, and aims her for the lizard, though he questions if he can even throw her that far, but he decides to trust himself, knowing that he did this a lot in his military service. And so, he throws Lucy towards Taken, shouting at everyone else to get down. Meanwhile, Lucy is trying to say that he is so mean with her mouth full of jerky. And right as Taken attacks, Lucy gets in between and interrupts it. She then uses Divine Lightning on Taken, causing a huge bolt of lightning to descend from the sky. Lortel and Clevius freaks out and tries to protect themselves with barrier, and Ed also starts to get pushed back due to the force. Ed notes that it's a crucial moment. Taken is a high-ranking fire spirit whose thick hide made it impossible for anyone to defeat it, but after getting struck by Lucy's high-level magic, it's starting to crumble. And so now, their attacks will work, and taking down Taken will result in an enormous number of experience points. And since he has come this far, he plans to take full advantage by taking the kill for himself. We now get a flashback for Janica, as her mother tells her that she is proud of her and loves her very much. We also get his friends and other teachers, all having very high expectations of her, always praising her, taking her sides, and putting their faith in her. And that without her, the second year would have been the worst class as they believe, so they are glad that she is here with them. Back to the present, everyone arrives at the training hall as Janica takes notice of them, and tells herself that she needs to greet them with her usual smile. Though she seems to be completely in control of Velisper, Ed notes that the fight against Janica has just started, and this chapter is supposed to end before dawn. And thankfully, he has made it in time. He asks Lortel about Lucy, and she replies that she is rolling around somewhere in the corner, though Ed hoped that she could have landed the finishing blow as well, and Lortel replies that she don't know if Lucy has enough mana left for that. And so, Ed says that they would take care of it instead. Lortel replies that she is trying, but Taken is still holding on, even after she landed 2 ice spear attacks against it using a lot of her magic. Ed replies that she needs to slash its neck. Her ice magic isn't suited for cutting things, so he would take care of it. But Lortel argues, if shouldn't he leave it to Clevius, who uses a sword, since Ed is also in the magic department like her. But seeing him, he asks Lortel if she thinks that he can do it, and she disagrees. Ed tells Lortel to trust him, and he would put an end to this, so she have to just try and slow down Taken for once. He would be putting his life on her hands, so she should pay attention. Lortel is confused and replies that he seems to have no trouble putting his own life in hands of other people's, or telling people to trust him, even though it's just a gamble, and Ed replies that it's not a gamble, as putting your life on the line isn't like betting money. But this is an investment. Hearing which, she smirks, saying that investing is her specialty, and that she do prefer him over that princess who gets pulled this way and that way, despite pretending to be a leader solely with her imperial bloodline backing her up. And since he has decided to put his life in her hands, she decides to leave hers to him as well. And so, Ed rushes forward, while Clevius jumps out. Taken begins preparing an attack, while Ed notes that both of them are at the end of their ropes, and he knows how Clevius feels. Ed also prepares his wind magic, noting that he needs to get even more close. Suddenly, they all notice a huge hand above the training hall. Ed notes that it's Glaskin's right arm, and it must mean that Taylor and others are up to their final attack, and it means that the story is advancing as it should. But the timing is terrible. Anyone would be distracted by this sight. And we see Taken is trying to land his attack on Ed, but it gets stopped by an ice attack. As Ed notes that even with the terrifying scene going up ahead, Lortel didn't miss her chance. And Ed makes use of this opportunity and slides down while preparing his wind attack, noting that he is also not going to miss his chance. And with that wind slash, he is able to finally cut off Taken's neck and take him down. And with that kill, he gets lots of abilities on higher level and also unlocks Spirit Contract. He looks towards Glaskin's hand and notices Taylor flying towards it, and he completely slashes it apart, destroying it finally. As Ed remembers and realizes once again that Taylor is indeed the protagonist of the story, they all looks up in the sky, noting that it's all finally over. Now fast forward a bit later, and it gets dawn. Lortel tells Ed that she met a lot of people who talk about putting their life on the line, but most of them turn out to be coward, and Ed agrees. And Lortel asks if this all he has to say, even after they went through that life-threatening event together. And so, Lortel once again decides to properly introduce herself to Ed. And as he shakes her hand, she has handed over those 3 gold coins that he refused before, while saying that she has won this time. And since he let his guard down, now he owes her one. And that she would be seeing him again soon. Ed wonders if Lortel is implying that she would keep acting like they know each other, though he really don't want to get involved with her. And now, another person starts walking towards him. And it's Taylor, who tells Ed that he resents him, and Ed must know why. Meanwhile, seeing his white hair, Ed thinks that he looks cool and must have awakened his swordmaster skill. But regardless, he bows down to Ed and tells him that he owes him a great debt. But Clevius tries to nag and complain to Taylor that Ed is a terrible person and will someday backstab him. But everyone else tells him to shut up. Princess Peenia tells him that he did a lot for them, and if she tells the student of council about his deeds, but Ed quickly rejects her offer, saying that in the end, it was Lucy who did most of the damage against Taken, and Taylor was the one who defeated Velisper and Glaskin, so she should give them the credit instead. Elvira smirks and asks Ed if he is denying his contribution. Everyone knows already that Lucy and Taylor played huge role in this, but they are talking about all the other things that he did. So is he embarrassed to admit, or what? Hearing this, Zix steps in and tells Elvira to be more polite to her elders, while she gets annoyed at everyone taking Ed's side. Meanwhile, Ed thinks that he has done his best to keep his distance from the main characters in order to avoid influencing the main storyline, but now that he is watching them up close, he cannot help but feel fuzzy inside. Because he watched these characters go through their roles countless times and get past each of their own obstacles for the sake of this world. Taylor, who gets stronger with each ordeal he has to go through. Isla, who gets stronger for Taylor's sake. Penia, who matures with each incident in order to become the ruler she is fated to be. Zix, who forges his own path within civilization. Clevius, who finds confidence in himself. And Elvira, who realizes that life isn't just about fun and entertainment. And Lortel, who begins to reflect on the way of her life, which was dedicated solely to making more gold. They're all main characters in this story who plays the roles they are given, and at the end of it all, success awaits them. And knowing this, Ed turned away. He then gets back to the training hall, remembering that he was never able to come back here at this point when he played the game. The stage after the end of the boss fight. The spare platform, which was where Lucy was napping during the joint combat training. He couldn't help but come here, because he felt like something was missing. After all, in order to put the spotlight on the protagonist, someone had to stay backstage. As we see, it's Janica, who was hiding in there and greets Ed with a smile. Seeing her, Ed remembers back asking Lortel, what is it that Janica lose control, and she had a theory. She caught a glimpse of Janica's room once. Every one of those items there was a sign of sincere appreciation, but despite how large her desk was, there was no space for her to place even a book or two. The writing pinned to the wall weighed her down like massive boulders. It would have been easy to avoid this weight. All she had to do was take down the notes on the wall and put the gifts on her desk in a corner, but the room of her misery was the fact that she was like an innocent girl from a fairy tale who could never do such a thing. She tried obsessively to repay everyone's appreciation and meet their high expectations by doing her very best. And it was really reckless. The darkness inside of her was enough for Velisper to take hold, and it was only a matter of time until Janica would succumb to it. But Ed wonders, why did it all have to happen a month before it should have? Taylor was supposed to be the one praised for the victory in this scene, but because Lucy took him out, everyone ended up becoming fan of Janica instead. The reason why Taylor lost so completely to Lucy was because she made a contract with Marilda, and she was able to do so because she visited the northern forest so often. The reason for that, in turn, was because she had found a perfect place to nap. And the person who provided the spot happened to be someone who was supposed to have left the academy at the start of Act 1. Janica gets up, saying that she understands why Lucy was napping here. It was nice and cozy, and she didn't expect anyone to find her, as it seemed everyone forgot about her, which hurts a little to her. She ran amok on such a grand stage, but now that it's over, no one cares anymore. She thought that they might come and at least look a little for her. She didn't expect him to find her so quickly, as she wanted to stay in here for a little while. Ed asks, why? And she replies because she wanted to bawl her eyes out with tears. Ed remembers the wolf's request, thinking that it was almost as if wanted him to prevent this from happening to Janica. But there is no way, as he is the only one who knows the future. He is sure that the wolf figured out that the person who didn't cared for Janica in the midst where everyone was fawning over her might actually be someone she could rely on. And in the end, Janica failed. She had been trying to make contract with another high-ranking spirit, but she got too careless with the summoning and ended up being consumed by a dark spirit. She had studied day and night to improve her magic and had always met her family, fellow students, and teachers with a smile. She tried her very best to meet their expectations when no one was looking. Each step of her journey was beautiful because of the work she put in, and so her failure was beautiful as well. And so, he calls out to Janica, thinking that his words might not be comforting enough, but he still tells her that she did great. When the main characters walked out into the stage, they were met with applause. But the backstage was quiet and dark. The protagonist's every move overshadowed what happened to the final boss of Act 1. He replayed the Act 1 countless times, that he felt like he got a proper ending for it. The low-ranking spirits starts to show interest in Ed, and the high-ranking spirit, Marilda, shows great interest in him. Now fast forward to 10 days since Janica's disciplinary hearing. She pleaded guilty to everything and stated that she would accept any punishment they thought is appropriate. But even during the first round of hearing, all of Janica's friends and supervising professors stood up in her defense. In the second round, Penia declared that the palace would not charge Janica with an attempt against the life of a member of imperial family and testified that she was controlled and had not intended this to happen. Lortel stepped in when it came to costs by the destruction of campus building. The Elt Company covered reconstruction free of charge, in exchange for cutting in half the customs charged by the Academy for any supplies sold there. But regardless, Janica lost all financial support for being a top student, had to return all of her honorary awards, lost the right to live in Ophelis Hall starting from next semester, and was given 10 days of probation and 20 days of suspension, but she avoided expulsion. Everyone was happy, but to them, Janica still seemed down, which causes her friends to step in. They tell each other to not bring up the Glasgow incident, act like they don't feel sorry for her either, and will try to steer conversation to something more like trivial gossip. And so, they get ready to cheer her up. But Janica suddenly starts blushing and asking, why do they think there is such a big difference between liking and loving someone? Seeing her like this, her friends are stunned, as they asks, where is this coming from suddenly, and Janica replies that it's about her friend. The other day, her supposed friend dreamed about something, as we see Janica sitting like a princess in a garden as someone greets her. And it's Ed, who looks like her prince, as she puts the crown made of flowers on his head, which she made for him. They both then run together hand in hand, as she tells her friends that her friend keeps having dreams like that, making her friends think that she was on probation for the past 10 days, so she couldn't have been able to see anyone, so her saying that it's about her friend is stupid. Anise asks Janica what else did her friend told her, and Janica replies that when she sits in her room and stares at the wall, his face keeps coming to mind. This caused Anise to run away, saying that she remembered to help the professor with something. Clara thinks that she needs to approach it carefully and slowly, so that Janica doesn't get hurt in any way. And if she is not careful, the whole academy will find it out in a heartbeat. Janica and love will make gossip train unstoppable. And so, she tells Janica that it's not as complicated as she thinks, as liking or disliking someone, feeling like that pretty hard to explain. So being true to her feelings is best for her, or for her friend, and Janica agrees, saying that she knew she could count on her. Clara also tells her to be careful about bringing up such delicate matters, since it might make both her and her friend look bad if she talks too much, and Janica panics and agrees. But regardless, she thanks Clara for listening to her, and lives back to Ophelis Hall to write her suspension report, while Clara decides to wait here to think about some things. And when Janica leaves, she slams down her head on the table upon finally solving this dilemma of Janica. Back to Ed, who apparently has to not save up coins anymore since Penia has put in some good words for him, so his tuition became free. And so, he brought some tools with the gold coins that he was given. He then notices Janica fidgeting around, and notes that he has been avoiding her for a while, but now that the Act 1 is done, and Janica is no longer the final boss, he can probably talk to her some more, as he greets her and asks if her probation is over. She gets really nervous and hides behind tree while greeting him back as she tries to be true to her feelings. But she quickly runs away in embarrassment, saying that she has stuff left to at the Ophelis Hall, proving the task really difficult for Janica. Meanwhile, Ed is quite stunned by this, as he managed to drive away someone as kind-hearted as Janica. But regardless, he decides to focus on his thing, as it's finally time for him to build a cabin for himself. On day 1, he decided on where to build his cabin. He picked out a wide open space with the shade that was out of the way and started flattening the ground. Day 3, he began gathering lumber. This went quite smoothly, seeing that he trained his wind/attack so much. Day 6, it was time for the end of semester evaluations. He paused his construction for a bit. He did pretty well on his written exam, and while his practical exam grades still needed work, he had improved greatly, considering how his grades were at the start. And for some reason, Janica kept avoiding him. Her friends, Clara and Anise, keep giving him the warning looks, as if to tell him to not go near her, though he don't intend to either ways. Day 18, he almost gathered all the wood for the cabin. He began to wonder whether anyone had ever trained wind/attack as much as he did. Day 20, their semester break began, and he was now able to spend all day at his camp. And when he went to check his snare trap, he found Lucy caught in it, sound asleep, so he decided to stop using beef jerky as bait. Day 27, Belle Maya, a senior maid of Ophelis Hall, came to visit and shared a few medicinal herbs and mushrooms with him. She asked how things were going with him and Janica. So, he told her that he must have done something to make Janica upset, but she just tilted her head at him. Day 30, one of the pillars he set up fell over and the exterior wall went tumbling down. He realized that making the joints fit together wasn't enough to make the structure sturdy. He also ran into Janica and her friends by the bakery in the commercial district, She ran away as soon as their eyes met as usual, and her friends realized something. Day 37, Zix came by to help, and told Ed that Taylor is a really good guy just like he said, making Ed think that things are finally moving according to the story. Day 45, and he finally seems to have finished up his cabin as he goes inside and sits. He notes that he don't have flooring, and the walls are still drafty. The cabin he made was a crude structure made from nothing but with logs. But it has exterior wall and a roof. If he closed the doors, he can keep the bugs out. He finally smiles upon its completion, noting that he finally have a house. And we see Janica is also standing outside, staring at Ed and deciding something. Inside his new cabin, Ed thinks that it would be nice once he finished the flooring and walls, add furniture and a fireplace, and also build a fence around the cabin, and he also planned to make a small shed to keep his tools in and firewood as well. Suddenly, he hears a loud sound on top of his cabin, and we see it's Lucy again as Ed tells her that it's not her cat tower. Janica also finally shows herself and greets Ed nervously, who greets her back. Ed then asks her what brings her here, and she sweats wondering what to reply. Sometime before, Belle Maya told her that when she stopped by the forest the other day, she visited Master Ed's campsite and saw something quite astounding. Janica asks if she is talking about the cabin, and Belle Maya in return asks how did she knows, and she replies that she saw it while passing. Ed told Belle Maya that he made it himself, and she was impressed by how well made it was, and she didn't expect him to be so handy. Maya then leans in, telling Janica in her ear that she really wanted to go inside and look at it in detail to see how sturdy it is and such. Janica blushes and replies that she thought the same thing. Maya replies that she is only a human after all. Anyone would love to take a closer look at a cabin in the woods if they saw it in passing and wondered who made it and how. It's an extremely normal and natural response. In remembering this, Janica immediately uses the same excuse for herself to get inside Ed's cabin and praises his cabin for looking amazing. Ed replies if the spirits didn't told her about it. Janica stutters and replies they did, but only in passing, and didn't told her much in detail. But in reality, they told Janica about how good his muscles are when he takes his shirt off and how thick his veins has gotten and all that, which causes her get a nosebleed. Meanwhile, she tells Ed that she don't talk that much with the spirits to begin with, and that she don't know much about how he is doing. Ed asks if she would like to take a look inside and invites her in. And Janica blushes and smiles while nodding her head. She is really impressed by all this, and asks if he made this all by himself. Now fast forward, and they are sitting by the fire, with Janica saying that she owes everyone a huge debt. She didn't expect the princess or Lortel to step in and help her so much. Some of her friends even offered to lend her money for tuition, so she don't know how can she repay everyone. But Ed replies that if she can't, that she shouldn't. The idea that you have to repay every single favor is old-fashioned, and Janica replies that she never thought about it that way. Ed knows that is what Janica is like. The whole reason that things went so far was because she was weighed down by everyone's well-intended expectations, but most people wouldn't realize that. The reason she made the decision to move from the luxurious Ophilus Hall to Dex Hall, the oldest dormitory in the campus despite people offering to fund, was probably because she didn't want it to owe so much. But the students in Ophilus Hall get their own rooms, while each room is shared by at least 8 students in Dex Hall. Having to deal with the admiring gazes of her friends all day long has to be like being chained down in prison. So in the end, her root problem haven't been solved, and the vicious cycle hasn't been broken. And so, Ed tells her that if she ever wants to be alone, she can visit anytime. He would let her be. It causes her to smile as she says that it makes her really happy. She also tells Ed that if he ever find himself in a bind or in need of help, she hopes that he would turn to her. And when he does, she promises to help him. And Ed also smiles hearing that. From that, he also remembers that the second semester is about to begin, and that they are getting close to the start of the second act of the game now. The Sage's sealed tome, this worn, old book, is at the center of this incident that sweeps across the whole academy, as Lortel smirks seeing it, saying that it does looks really expensive. Ed tells Janica thanks for saying that, but it won't be necessary, and believes the upcoming incident won't matter, at least to him. As he tells Taylor that he would have to go through a lot soon, and while it doesn't have anything to do with him, it would suck. Now we are at episode 2, the occupation of Ophilus Hall. The students qualified to live in this hall are guaranteed a life of luxury, They are given the right to pick their seats before the other students, have meals whenever they want, and are assigned personal maids. This is where the trouble breaks out, as the semester break came to a close and it was time for the students to return to campus. A torrential rainstorm swept over the southwestern region of Bel-Air, where Akin Island is located. The academy provided carriages and boats for returning students, even allowing them to arrive a few days late without repercussions, but this was limited to the students of Ophilus Hall. The students of the Dex Hall, who had to ford through the rain to get to campus, and were anxious about arriving late and receiving demerits for it, were really angered by this incident, and finally snapped. And of course, all of this was planned by a certain merchant. The merchant made contact with Willine, the representative of the underachieving students ahead of time. He was intent on exacting his revenge against the academy and Ophilus Hall. The complaints against the academy were at all-time high. As long as the underachieving students and the regular students are given enough of a reason to become enraged, Willine, skilled in instigating a mob and making speeches, would do the rest. The reason already existed: the extreme difference between treatment of elite students and the regular students. The proposition that suggested that the elite students of Ophilus Hall be given a grace period of several days to get to the academy. The head maid who governs Ophilus Hall and several of the academy's administrators are already on Lortel's side. They would support the proposition without hesitation. At this point, it didn't matter whether or not the academy have agreed to the proposition, but the fact that it was even suggested was enough to enrage the regular students. The incident had to be big and noticeable. Numerous works of art that belong to noble houses and powerful families are on display at Ophilus Hall, and the stuff inside is all made by master craftsmen. The more damage to the property, the better. If the enraged students were to go all out, the academy, who is already in financial trouble because of the Glasgow incident, will become desperate, and it would give the Elk Company a huge advantage in negotiations, which is currently ongoing over the sale of the Sage's sealed tome. It's a magic book significant enough to be called the heart of the academy, but those at the end are willing to put something that important on the table. There was no sigh of light among the dark clouds. It was just like the sky she had looked up at between the tattered roofs of the slums. She began to feel guilt for how complacent she had felt. There were too many sources of light in this campus of learning, brimming with hope and idealism. But all it did was shine a light on just how much darkness had seeped into her while she had lived in it. The countless schemes on her table was the proof, the traces of someone who never revealed their true thoughts and always sought to trick others and suspect them. She had changed in order to adapt and survive, but that didn't change the darkness rooted inside of her. And so, she sought out others like herself. Because even at this academy, it was possible that someone would approve of the efforts made by a nasty sewer rat. As long as she leaned against this futile hope, her nature would never change, as she comments, how lonely it is. In order to survive this reality, Lortel always used the same strategy. She was always the one covering up the grim truth behind the stage. And the name for such a person was the mastermind. Students outside the hall shout and chant about their oppression, that they won't take it any longer. In the original novel, the occupation of the Ophilus Hall has to be stopped by the protagonist. Several mid-bosses aid rioting students and stand in the way of the protagonist, as a maid nervously plans to report this all to the head maid. Decoy Tot, the mid-boss of the first floor, he was the one who made fun of Taylor for failing his class, and was easily won over by Lortel after being defeated against Taylor and his friends. His role is to take care of the new maid who guards the first floor, and also to open the door of the Ophilus Hall, and allows the students to rush inside, as all the students goes in to let their voices be heard. Standing in the way of the protagonist and his friends once the other students get inside is the role of Decoy Tot, mid-boss of the first phase of Act 2. As Willine asks if he is the one Lortel recruited, and the guy removes his hood, saying that he is in charge of guarding the first floor. And it turns out to be Ed, while technically this role was supposed to go to Tot. So how did he end up becoming a mid-boss? He questions. And to explain how he ended up here, he has to go back to what happened 2 days ago. We get to see his combat skills details, with his specialty being archery, and he seems to be tracking a small animal. And with this, Ed is once again reminded how poor talent he has when it comes to combat skills. He has been forcing himself to use a bow whenever he goes hunting, but even after a whole semester and half of the break, his archery skill haven't improved much. But more importantly, these days, various guests have been stopping by more regularly than before, as we see Maya and Zix both greet Ed. It feels as if more and more people are finding out that he lives in the northern forests, in a cabin by himself. And in any case, among his regular visitors, there are 3 noteworthy individuals. Guest number 1 is a genius mage who visits at random. Lucy is quite excited seeing that he has a door and asks Ed to create a back door as well, and also, if he is going to build a chimney as well. But Ed kicks her out from the window, but she pops up again, once again asking bunch of stuff and questions to him in excitement, making Ed think that guest number 1 is hard to control. But Ed actually welcomes guest number 2, who is Janica, and has brought him some eggs, as Belle told her that Ed would be happy if she brought him some. She is the top of the second-year class and quite a talented elementalist. She also helps him with his laundry, saying that if he adds salt water to it, it gets nice and white, which her parents used to do as well. And Ed thinks that since he told her that she can come whenever she wants, she really started coming by every day and would chat with the spirits or help him with a few chores here and there. And he is also extremely grateful to her. And he also compliments her by telling her that she is the best, causing her to turn away and blush, which confuses Ed of her behavior. Janica then asks him, how often does Lucy visits his camp, with Ed thinking that while she seems easy to read, sometimes he really doesn't understand her. And the main reason that he brought this up is guest number 3, as she tells him that he looks quite busy. And we see it's Lortel, who seems to have been waiting for him. And she asks Ed that she needs his help. She is the mastermind behind the incidents in Act 2 of the game. She was most likely recruiting useful individuals for her Awfulest Hall occupation plot. But Ed really doesn't want to get involved, so he decided to reject her offer, no matter what. But Lortel tells Ed that she really didn't want to go this far. And as Ed thinks that if he just stay out of it, everything will go according to story, Lortel tells him that if only Tot hadn't fainted, which shocks Ed. As he wonders, why aren't things going according to the story, and he grabs Lortel, asking, why would he faint? And to tell him everything. Ed remembers that Tot was supposed to pick a fight with Taylor and get beaten up just enough by Taylor. And his next line was, that Taylor is nothing but an insect who is even worse than Ed Rothstaler. And it causes Zix to immediately punch him right on the ground in anger. Lortel also tells Ed that Elvira said she never saw Zix this angry before, though it was unclear whether he was defending Taylor or Ed. So, she cannot really put her trust into someone so temperamental. And so the favor she is asking him off is simple. Elris will give him the key to Awfulest Hall. He has to get inside and keep out of sight. But Ed continues the rest, that when the underachieving students come rushing in, he just have to open the door for them. And Lortel replies that if it was this easy, anyone would have done it. She may be offering a lot of money, but there is no guarantee that they won't squeal things during the investigation after everything is over. And if things were to come out that she was behind it, things would be bad for he. So she cannot trust just anyone with this, and Ed realizes that she came to him because of his poor reputation. She tries to instigate him, saying if he doesn't want revenge against the academy, since he was kicked out of the Awfulest Hall. And Ed replies that he is not interested in revenge, but he is still willing to listen to her offer. She offers him 20 gold coins, and he immediately accepts, thinking that he just have to play it loose, and before the story gets derailed, he just have to set it straight. Now a day before the incident, Awfulest Halls happens before the battle for the Sage's sealed tome. It is Lortel's scheme to drive the academy finances into corner, meaning it leads to next chapter of the game. According to the game's plot, Lortel's plan succeeds, and she creates her own company within the academy for profit, which serves to hold Princess Phenia and the student council in check. The idealistic student council against the pragmatic company. The important thing here is that whoever Taylor sides with will win. And all Ed plans to do is to join whichever side seems like it will win. He has to be realistic. Janica seems to be here as well, as she comments that she should probably get back to her room. She thought that the rain would have stopped by now. She tells Ed that it must be hard on him, as while she can visit and feel like camping on a trip, he has to stay out here even when it rains, and Ed replies that it's not bad once you get used to it. From this, Janica says that she needs to get her things from Awfulest Hall as well. She has to get rid of a lot of things, since Dex Hall is smaller than she expected. And so, she asks Ed to tell her if he needs anything, since he might need a lot of things, and he agrees. Janica continues that she got extra blankets and all that stuff she can give to him. She keeps on chattering like this about all the stuff she would like to give to him, and Ed smiles hearing that. And he finally replies that it sounds good. So Janica excitedly says that she would bring it over once the semester starts, and she leaves Awfulus Hall. She then notices Lucy and asks if she is always like that, and Ed replies, "It's sometimes." The ridiculous power that Lucy possesses certainly comes with a price. She has been running away from her fate with the excuse that she is too lazy. And it's been years since she has turned her back on her fate. But on a rainy day like this, even someone as carefree as her is forced to reflect on her decision. And so, Ed tells Janica that she acts like this when it rains, so she shouldn't worry and just ignore, and she gets happy hearing that Ed is really indifferent when it comes to Lucy. He then calls out to Janica to tell her something, as he remembers that she is still staying at the Awfulus Hall. As once the occupation begins, numerous ward spells are activated, trapping all the students in their room. Someone like her can easily make it out, but still. And so, he tells Janica that he has a favor to ask, and she asks, "What is it?" And Ed tells her that tomorrow around 9 at night. Can she come to the rose garden in front of the Awfulus Hall? Hearing which shocks her, and she blushes heavily, and Ed tells her that he would explain it further when he would see her there, as he cannot think of any way to explain it. So he wants to get Janica out of the hall, just in case, somewhere not too far, and somewhere she would stay dry from rain. She quickly stands up and leaves while blushing and saying that she will be on her way, getting Ed confused. Ed sighs, knowing that the rain won't stop until the first day of the semester, and he would be able to see the clear skies then. And after that, the forest will begin to smell like fall. The long break is about to end. Now on the day of the incident, at 9 p.m., we see Zix training, saying that he needs to stop getting swept by his anger, and he didn't thought that Elka would get so upset with him. And when he finishes up, he notices something outside of his window. And it's Ed, who seems to be going towards the Awfulus Hall. He meets up with a maid and asks, "Where are the other maids?" And she replies that only a minimum number of them are still working. The rest are gathered in the meeting room. The head maid has summoned them all with the excuse of an important announcement. The plan is to lock the door and trap them inside. Everything is much easier since Lortel has brought the head maid to her side. And she has also prepared the item that Ed requested, and he thanks her for that. And now, everything is in place. And the occupation of Awfulus Hall has begun, as we see many students rushing towards it. They put up their demands, and with Willine leading them from the back. And Ed opens up the door for them, and they all get surprised seeing it. But regardless, they all quickly rushes in. And we get to the current scene, where Willine has realized that the one Lortel has recruited is Ed. Ed clears his throat and tells Willine that he agrees with all that he said, and while he has enjoyed Awfulus Hall as well, but now since he is kicked out, he can finally realize how privileged he was. Willine is moved by his acting, as he tells Ed that he had no idea he was such a good person. Ed then quickly starts pushing Willine, telling that they couldn't have done this all without him. Meanwhile, Ed thinks that Willine has to be the one to take on all the blame, and also notes that there is no need to go after the maid who is running away. The higher-up she is trying to report to should be locked up in the meeting either ways. Elris, the head maid, who wields the highest authority here and controls the ward spells, has been brought out by Lortel. And the spells that are supposed to protect the students actually locks them in the room, as they start to panic and wonders what is going on outside. Ed notes that it's all going according to the story now. And now someone arrives, saying that things have started out flashier than they thought. And it's just as she thought, saying that she knew she can trust Ed, and seeing her, Ed thinks, now the mastermind behind all this takes the stage. Lortel comments that even her socks got drenched, and expresses her hate for rain. And Ed asks she was watching from the outside. She replies that they would have to be quick and get things going before the academy staff begin to intervene. It would be over then, and Ed wishes her luck. But she suddenly stops and says that while it might like a strange question, she asks Ed if he has ever killed anyone. Ed thinks a bit and replies he haven't. Hearing which, she chuckles and says that she haven't either. But she has done a lot of things that are almost as bad because she needed to survive. In order to survive, she ruined the lives of others, and in order to avoid getting stabbed in the back, she did so first. She told herself that it was all inevitable, that her actions were justified, but really, it was all an excuse. That was how Lortel came to be called the Golden Daughter. She knows better than anyone else that she has no right to be pitted. And so, she keeps searching for others like her, as she asks Ed, would he pity someone like her? Loneliness is a feeling that can come to anyone, regardless of whether they are good or bad. In order to escape it, one must find others rolling around in the same mud pit. Only when they find someone to be at their side, even in the deepest of pits, can they find salvation. And so, Ed declines any pity for her, saying that she need to take responsibility for her actions, and he believes that he is not that someone who is in the same mud pit as her. She stays silent for a bit and apologizes for saying something so out of her character, and goes on saying that she would go and do her part, since there isn't much time left. And as she leaves, Ed finally sighs and sits down. Ed remembers that Lortel is about to discuss the next stage of the plan with Elris. They will decide to aggravate the situation by overloading the ward spells in Ophelis Hall after handing over the trigger to Willine, the representative of underachieving students. And Willine, after receiving all the magic power contained from the countless ward spells throughout Ophelis Hall, becomes the fourth-floor boss. The key to this fight is taking down Willine as soon as possible, as he is overtaken by the overloaded spells, and all he needs to do is wait for Taylor to barge in. And once he holds them off for a bit before letting them win, Taylor would proceed upstairs, though he doubts he can get through this scuttle without a few injuries and bruises. But he believes it to be a necessary sacrifice. Now we switch scenes to the Rose Garden, where there is a carriage, that too at this time of night. And upon noticing that, Janica assumes that someone important must be here and wonders if she needs to leave. She also assumes that Ed doesn't know about this, and he just left this note behind to her. She blushes, thinking that perhaps he could be preparing something for her. For her, the golden carriage didn't matter. The girl was not going to leave the Rose Garden, no matter what. She had hardly slept the past 3 days, trying to imagine what the boy wanted to discuss, though she felt guilty about it. Janica had continuously heard about how Ed was doing from Marilda. Lucy wasn't the only one. Princess Phenia, Belmaya, Zix, and even Lortel were sighted leaving for Ed's camp. And the fact that most of them were girls made things worse. And so, Janica decided to wait, no matter how long it took. Janica then touches her clip, thinking that perhaps she shouldn't have worn this persimmon flower clip, and a Cosmos one would have been better. And so, she thinks to maybe run upstairs quickly, as she decided to wait for Ed after swapping out her hair clip. And so, she also started to head towards Ophelis Hall. Meanwhile, we see our main cast arriving with Taylor asking if charging into Ophelis Hall is the right decision, and Elvira replies if Taylor has any idea how expensive all the medicinal herbs she hung to dry in her room are. Taylor asks if it would not be better to let Academy handle this, and Elvira replies that if she don't put the preservation spell on it, their properties will change, and the thinnest difference can affect her experiment by a huge amount. He asks Ayla to try and stop her, and Ayla replies to perhaps let her be, since she is a top student from the alchemy department, so she is sure that she can take care of herself. And Taylor replies that it's the underachieving students who will be in trouble, not Elvira. She starts throwing reagents left and right without thinking of repercussions. And so, Ayla also tries to stop her, but she pulls them and tells them to come with her to her room at 4th floor, and Ayla asks if they come to her room, she won't do anything then, right? And Elvira agrees, saying that she just needs her herbs. And so, she kicks open the door, saying that they would charge in through no matter how is standing in their way. And upon opening the gate, they are quite shocked, as it's Ed who is standing in their way. Taylor asks him, what is he doing at the Ophelis Hall? And Elvira, upon looking around, notes that other students have passed through, the furniture has been upturned, and that Ed got his back to the stairs. Elvira steps in, saying that it's quite interesting, as she didn't expected this, and that he is planning to stop them, isn't he? And Ed apologizes, while saying that they cannot get past this point. Elvira smirks, calling it funny, asking if he has any way of stopping her. She has heard from Six that his magic skills are quite good. But in the end, he is just a second-year student who can cast nothing but basic magic. While they got a pretty talented sword fighter, and a mage with at least average skills for a first year, as well as an alchemist who is at the top of her class. So she believes that they are at a clear advantage. Taylor asks Ed, why is he doing that? And what is going on upstairs? But Ed doesn't say anything, and so Taylor rushes at him to attack, to force Ed to talk. Ed first throws a chair in between to intercept the attack, and Elvira notes that judging by the flow of mana, he is using beginner's magic, As a mage who is weak in melee combat, he would most likely go after Taylor. But much to her shock, Ed suddenly lifts his hand upwards instead, and uses the wind slash on the chandelier up on the ceiling, causing it to fall on Taylor. And it causes Taylor to get pushed back. Meanwhile, students on the second floor panics hearing the noise and wonders what is going on. Clevius also gets scared and questions what is happening out there. Taylor asks Elvira and Ayla if they are all right, and both of them are. And in the midst of all that, Elvira gets her hair strand and bag cut off from her shoulder by Ed's wind slash attack, which shocks her. And all of her magic equipments and reagents fall on the ground. Realizing that Ed is serious about this, she assumes that something is definitely going on upstairs. Elvira glances at her items and tries to reach for them. But suddenly, Ed uses his ignite spell, and we see everything gets surrounded by flames. Elvira notes that it's quite bad, and that Ed is quite quick and precise, as she tells Zix that he should have told her that it's not just Ed's magic skills that are good. Elvira notes that as the top alchemy student, she is the strongest one on their side, and the critical weakness of the alchemy department is that they barely have any combat skills without relying on magic items or reagents. Most of the alchemy students carry around magic items in the form of rings or necklaces, just in case, but she never expected a genius like her to need something like that. And in shock, she assumes that Ed actually considered all of that. She questions if he made the chandelier drop and put up a wall of fire just to target her bag. But then, he would have just targeted her, not her bag, and besides, he is just Ed Rothstaler. She then takes out some ball from her pocket, thinking that she still has something left, as it creates some kind of bunny. She then imbues it with fire resistance and berserk mode, and then, with more strength. And this causes that bunny to grow huge and more ferocious. Ayla says that she can put out the fire using her magic and tries to use a water spell to do so. But Ed easily counters it with his wind magic and attacks Ayla, who is too stunned to do anything. But Taylor arrives and slashes Ed's magic and saves Ayla, telling her to get it together. Elvira notes that Ayla might be confident in her knowledge of magic, but in terms of combat, she is still just an ordinary first year. And moreover, Ed keeps aiming for Ayla, so they cannot get up close with him, and Ayla and herself can hardly even move from their spot. She then asks Taylor if he can take him down if he gets close enough. And meanwhile, she orders her bunny to attack Ed, and it rushes towards him. And as it is about to attack Ed, Taylor also prepares to attack, saying that it's not about if he can do it, he has to do it. Elvira also uses a cloak and runs in, telling Taylor that she likes his spirit. And as she reaches to her magic items, she quickly throws away the cloak and rubs them at herself like a pervert, saying stuff like, she missed them and whatnot. And Ed, while fighting the bunny, dodges and aims her attack at Elvira, and sends a wind slash towards her. Elvira thinks that Ed seems like he was prepared for all this and throws one of her magic items towards his attack, and tells Ed that he is too late. This blue bottle is a special reagent made out of chopped up night butterfly flowers and arrowroot mushrooms, and imbued with a magic release spell. And its effect is to restrict the release of mana, and also the temporary neutralization of anything created by magic, as we see the fire disappears quickly. And we see Ed has already killed that bunny as it drops down dead. Meanwhile, Elvira mentally asks Ed if he realizes what all she did means, the fact that he is now a mage who cannot use magic here. Elvira, upon seeing his expression, tells Ed to stop acting nonchalant, as they have a fighter on their side, and shouts at Taylor to attack, who shouts Ed's name out loudly. But Taylor notes that Ed has started to run, and Ed quickly turns back and pushes a huge cabinet onto Taylor. And it causes some kind of liquid to also fall out of the bucket that the maid prepared. And once again it creates a huge fire, and Taylor notes that it smells like oil, and Elvira calls it ridiculous, as they are in the awfulest hall, so if the fire spreads to the hallways, people could get hurt. Taylor grips his sword tightly, saying that he can cut through any fire using his elemental slash, whether it's made of magic or spread through oil. And the reagent also lasts a few minutes either ways. So before anyone can get hurt, Taylor decides to put an end to it. But suddenly, Elvira tries to stop Taylor and shouts at him to wait. She notices that the windows are opened enough for the smoke to escape, and it also looks like that rugs and anything else that is flammable have been put away. As she realizes that even this all is part of Ed's calculated plan, as Ed finally takes out his bow. Elvira once again shouts at Taylor to stop. Meanwhile, Ed prepares to fire. Taylor is surprised to see that Ed can use a bow, but he thinks that he can block it, and just then he notices something. As the arrow flies past by him and towards Ayla instead, and Taylor realizes that he wasn't aiming for him from the start. Ayla is shocked as well, as Taylor notes that she cannot even use a basic defense spell right now. He shouts her name in worry, but the arrow gets suddenly stopped by something. And we see it's Elvira, who used one of her magic items to do so, noting that it was quite close. She used something called claw fingers, which allows the user to pull any small item towards themselves, no matter how far it is, as long as it's in sight. But suddenly, Elvira notes that the arrow has a ball of barrack in place of an arrowhead, and realizes that Ed was going easy on them. She again tells Taylor to watch out, believing that Ed still has something up his sleeve. And we see Ed blocks Taylor's strike with his bow. Suddenly, a huge noise comes from the second floor. And it's Act 2 of the occupation of the Awfulest Hall. Second floor boss, Creepy Clevius, escaped. And so, Ed relaxes and thinks, finally he can let go. And so, he stops defending and takes the strike head on, causing him to get sent flying. And Elvira is quite shocked by his actions, as she wonders what the hell happened. Taylor grabs Ed's collar, calling it ridiculous, and says that there has to be a reason for him to go this far. Elvira is quite annoyed, and hate it all, as she feels like they were all just playing along exactly the way Ed wanted them to, the whole fight. And if he had really intended to stop them, he would have ambushed them by dropping the chandelier without showing himself. But he was sitting here, waiting for them. And during the fight, he showed no hesitation or lack of experience. So, Elvira feels that something is definitely off, while Ed asks Taylor if he is done with this. And if he is, then he should stop yapping and get upstairs already. And they area all quite stunned by this, as Taylor says that Ed was just fighting so hard to stop them, yet he is saying this now. Elvira steps forward, asking Ed, why did he went easy on them? And Ayla asks Elvira, what does she mean? And Taylor is surprised to know that as well. Elvira is no mood to let this question go, as she again asks him, why did he go easy on them? And we see both of them having a stare down. But suddenly, the gate opens. The persimmon flower clip was what the girl decided on after endlessly contemplating over her choices. No one could possibly mock her innocent devotion, even if it was all a misunderstanding. She was free to imagine whatever she wanted. But the gap between those happy dreams and harsh reality is sometimes very cruel. The boy she imagined to appear at the gazebo, dressed up nicely, was on his back, covered in blood, after getting ambushed by villains, as Ed takes notice of her as well. And we see Janika's expression turns murderous as she asks them, what are they doing? Janika felt something out of place, thinking that Ed might have gotten himself swept in an unexpected situation. But knowing his simple lifestyle, and the way he acted during the Glaskin hunt, regardless of big or small, he made her believe that he would figure a way out of any problem. But when Janika got poked in her this naive way of thinking, she started to reflect on that thought about Ed she had. And despite her telling him that she would help him no matter what, Ed never asked for her help. The reason he lured Janika outside the hall, and even write a letter to her, and the reason why he fought alone, it was all to keep Janika outside of the battlefield, since she already got several punishments due to the Glaskin incident. And while Janika don't know what exactly happened, she does think that Ed was considerate towards her, so she wouldn't get caught up in this. And while she was busy worrying how she looked, he was fighting alone, causing her to get pissed even more. And with her expression filled with deep anger, she asks them, what are they doing? Taylor doesn't understand why she's pissed, and tries to tell Janika about the current Awfulest Hall situation instead. Elvira tells Taylor to snap out of it, as Janika is their enemy right now. But Janika tells them all that she is not at all curious about whatever is going on. Ed shouts out her name to try and stop her, but she simply smiles, telling him that it's okay. Everyone else is left stunned and shocked by seeing the scene happening right in front of them. As Janika has summoned shit tons of spirits by her side with her set on destroying everyone who hurt Ed. She asks Ed to give her just 1 minute. It would be all over. Elvira is sweating hard, seeing how Janika summoned intermediate-grade spirits of all 4 elements, not to mention many lower-ranking ones as well, which is practically a small army. Hence, she tries to tell Taylor to get out of here, since they cannot possibly get through Janika, especially when they lost against the fallen noble. And now they are up against the top student among the second years of the whole Faculty of Magic. Janica starts attacking them, though they barely dodges. Elvira tries to convince Taylor to accept reality and run. And while he don't disagree with her, Ed's actions made him realize that something is wrong about this takeover of Awfulest Hall. And because there is a chance of students getting hurt because of it, he aims his blade at Janica. This action of his made it clear that he would live the life of a hero. But this time, Ed pulls him with his collar and drags him back, saying that he should leave when he is telling him to. This also causes him to barely able to dodge the attack by one of Janica's spirits. Ed tells them all that he would take care of Janica, so they all should go to second floor as they planned previously. Isla is confused with his action, since he previously stopped them and now wants them to move up, and Ed replies that he has changed his mind, so they should go quickly. Elvira keeps being a bitch, questioning how is he going to stop those spirits, especially while being covered in scars like that. But he smacks her on the head, while apologizing for tearing up her bag. While she questions Ed for ordering her around, she decides to do what he is saying for now. And they all quickly leave, leaving Ed alone with Janica. Janica still plans to attack them, but suddenly her eye widens in surprise. As she sees Ed walking towards her, she tries telling him to move aside, as she would handle the rest. He can explain all the things later, but she first wants to wrap this all up and get him treated. But calmly calls out her name, and starts to lift up his arm towards her, again surprising her, as he tells her that he is fine. So she should tone it down a little now. And seeing Ed having his hands on her shoulders and up close with her like this, causes her to blush hard. She gets flustered and tries telling him that he got his hands on her shoulders, but Ed requests her to send the spirits away, as he is barely standing right now, in which she quickly realizes it as well, and apologizes for her stupid actions. Everyone is really shocked seeing that Ed was really able to stop her, as he signals them to go on quickly. And right after that, he falls on the ground, thinking that there is not much time left, while Janica worriedly calls out his name. A bit later, and Janica scolds Ed for again doing something dangerous and not telling her, but he replies that the situation didn't allow him to do that, but he promises to tell her next time. She also found them all being too excessive since they beat Ed up too much, and while she is not sure what happened, she plans to be angry at them next time they meet. But regardless, she tells Ed to make a promise with her to not get hurt again like this, and he thanks her for worrying about him. He starts to get up, thinking that while his plan gone a bit astray, he did his job as the first floor boss and can now focus on his camp. But just then, Janica informs him that she saw a huge carriage while she was waiting at the rose garden, and while she couldn't see it clearly since it rushed past her, it was shaped like a golden crown. Ed quickly remembers that it's the symbol of the leader of Elt Merchant Association, Lortel's adoptive father, and the one who killed her biological father, the fake boss who will disappear after losing to Lortel. In the struggle of the second act's last episode, Sage's sealed grimoire, Golden King Elt. But the fact that he came to Academy earlier than expected, Ed realizes something is going on in the story outside the scope of his knowledge. We see someone standing in the window at the hall and watching the carriage. And it turns out to be Lortel, who tells Alice that she was just dumped right now by that evil and mean-looking guy, Ed. She replies that she didn't thought he was her type, and Lortel replies that his looks aren't bad, but it's not what she meant. She got the same feeling from him as she did with her. She tells Alice about the question she asked Ed and how he dumped her without mercy. And while glancing at Alice, she tells her how people like them get used to hearing stuff like that all of their lives. Alice was the chief maid of Awfulest Hall, someone who has been working here for over 20 years. She started as an apprentice at the age of 15 and eventually proved herself to be capable of becoming the manger of Awfulest Hall. And this is where most of Lortel's investment went. She tried to bend Alice out of her uprightness, the losses from which burned a hole in the financial ledgers. But Lortel still didn't thought of it as a waste, telling Alice that she is lucky to have her by her side. She thought she found someone of her own kind, someone who would abandon their life's rigid beliefs just for some gold coins. And only by meeting such people could she break free from her solitude. Probably because she was in the ghettos of the slums, or the parades of merchants who risked their lives for a single gold coin, she lived a life where if she didn't stab someone first, she would be the one getting stabbed. But regardless of her sad past that pushed her into this predicament, she is still an evil character as she starts explaining the plans to destroy Awfulest Hall to Alice. She is clearly a hidden villain in the end. Now while walking along the hallway, she tells Alice all of her further plans, but Alice sighs. telling Lortel that while they are on this topic, she wants to inform her of something. Lortel, such a poor and pitiful human, for someone at her age, she has never even loved someone, or had someone she could consider family, causing her to be alone even in her death, as Alice tells her that she is not exactly of her kind, while pointing the sword right at her neck. We switch scenes to Taylor's party, who seems to have already overpowered Clebius, who was running from them, and forced him into their party. He was the second floor boss. The maid, Kelly, then tried to stop them at the third floor, but without her twin sister, she was quickly defeated. They didn't question why only one of the twin was there, and things went smooth for them, and they reached their destination, fourth floor. From the start, the only floor that was a tough challenge for them was the first floor. Suddenly, Elvira hears some screaming, and we see many students seems to be running away, crying for help. And we see it's from Will Lane, who is the hostage to defense magic, and thus the boss of the fourth floor, and he tries to call out for help as he is stuck in the defense magic. The self-defense magic formulas were carved all over the Ophilus building to protect the students from outside invaders. But the scene in front was like handing over a loaded weapon to a child. Taylor is barely able to block that attack, as everyone else tries to run away. This battle causes the whole Ophilus hall to shake, and students who were locked inside their room starts to panic. They realize that things have gone too far, and so they jump out of their dorm rooms in order to make an escape for themselves. Back to the fight, Taylor asks Elvira if she don't have any more night butterfly reagent, and she replies that it only distorts the magic of the caster, but the runes have already been carved, so it's useless against it. But she still takes something out, angerweed reagent, with which she is able to at least block all basic magic within this corridor. She notes that all of Willane's attack are of assisting magic, which might have lots of quantity, but she can still handle its force, so she kicks Clebius and Taylor out to knock out Willane instead. They both dodges the incoming attacks and quickly closes the distance between them. And Willane starts crying, saying that he will finally be free, as we see their attack causing an explosion in the building. We switch scenes to Ed and Janica, who asks Ed, what is he doing, and if he keeps pushing himself, it would open up his wounds again. But he tells her that it's not a big deal, since most of it isn't his blood, though she still believes that he is going really far. And as he spies on their carriage, Ed finds it really plain. Though one might think, this take is nonsense based on its outer appearance, but considering the man inside, one cannot help but call the carriage plain. Golden King, Elt. Normally he is usually escorted by a grand fleet of over a dozen carriages, but his silent approach hints at his secret motives. He is Lortel's adoptive father, and of the fake boss who later gets backstabbed by Lortel and exists the stage, so he shouldn't be at the academy right now. Ed has a bunch of questions. Why is he here? And why is he getting out so late, since the carriage seems to be here for quite some time, and if he is perhaps waiting for the hall to be wrecked first? Suddenly, Ed is shocked upon seeing someone, third floor maid, in charge of dishes, Shinny. She is also one of the orphans raised by Chief Maid Alice. Ed remembers Alice being bought by Lortel and Shinny being the boss of third floor, but the face that she is with Elt, who is Lortel's enemy, is strange. There is no way that she can betray Alice, but he considers the possibility that perhaps Alice herself is on Elt's side. And there is only possible future for it, which is Lortel's downfall. Lortel is the one who gets into the political fight with Fenia in Act 3, and as well as someone who plays a big role in the fight against Rothstaler family. He already had a hard time playing the role of the first floor boss, but if he would have to play the role of Lortel as well, it would be total insanity to him. And so, he calls out to Janica, saying that he got a favor to ask from her, and thinks, how can he explain it to her? But she immediately agrees without asking for any explanation, and asks, what does he need her to do? Elt apparently received a letter, which informed him about Lortel's apparent betrayal and her plan to take over the Elt merchantry. The letter contains information about Lortel, informing Elt that she already knows he killed her parents, and is currently coaxing business magnates and directors of his company to oust him. And the negotiations to purchase the Sage's Grimoire was also a way to lure him out to Sylvania Academy and to strike him so he cannot react in time to the crisis back at the headquarters. Certain factor led to the person who wrote this letter to find out the truth, and now they are holding the confidential document that can prove Lortel's plot. But since nothing in this world is free, and since Lortel already offered her huge amount, unless she is offered more, she will side with Lortel. Alice, the one who wrote this letter, is apparently losing her sight due to an accident and almost losing all of her hearing. She is in a situation and the only person who knows about Lortel's plan. And so, depending on her actions, things can change dramatically for the better or worse. There is also a paper attached to that document, which contains list of institutions she has been secretly managing all this time, and the amount of gold delivered to these institutions will determine her actions hereafter. And so, she hopes that he would make the correct judgment and ends the letter with her name. Back to the present, she tells Lortel to not move, and finds the look in her eyes unexpected, as she expected Lortel to be someone level-headed. She also apologizes to her for not finding either of them different in her eyes, though she finds herself to like them both as well in the end. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs, and we see Wayne is tied up and being dragged around. And we see it's Taylor and his party, with Elvira stating that she knew there was no way someone like Wayne could have gotten close to the defense magic, and the real culprit was Alice the head maid in the end, and also the fact that she is holding an hostage right now. Lortel takes advantage of this and quickly escapes to Taylor's group, who worries about her and asks if she is okay. While angry, Lortel plans to frame Alice for everything and blame this mess on her. But her expression is noted by everyone, and they ask her what is wrong with her face, causing Lortel to think, what kind of expression is she making right now for her to say that? And so, she decides to run away while hiding her face instead, while they all call out her name to stop her. She knows Golden King Eld is coming, someone who doesn't even trust his own men, so he must have come here by himself. And since her plan to overthrow him is almost complete, he would be blamed for large-scale tampering with the account and damages caused. And luckily, he isn't at the headquarters right now, so all she needs to do is to get in touch with the officials. For which, all she needs to do is to send that carrier pigeon hidden in her room. As long as she is not captured, it's going to be okay. But she starts to walk instead of run, telling herself that it would be fine, so she shouldn't be disappointed. Believing that there is no one around who understands her, and for the betrayal, she expected such a thing, and has gone through such things countless times already. And so, she thinks that getting her heart broken at this point shouldn't suit her at all. She thinks all this while crying and trembling. But she decides to do what she can, and again starts running, planning to get to her room before Elt does. Everything is going to be fine, if she just sends the pigeon she believes. While at the same time, we see Elt arriving at the first floor of the main hall. He encounters a student, whom he tells to quickly evacuate, but the student replies that they are not allowing anyone right now due to risk of collapsing of the building. And we see it's Ed, who doesn't plan anyone to get through here until the faculty and staff arrives. Elt asks if the academy gave him special instructions, and he replies he is acting on his own, since this academy basically has a shop system. Ed knows that there are 3 people right now who are aware of this story's flow. Lortel, who wants to oust Elt and take revenge for her childhood and empty the seat of the president. Elt, determined to thwart Lortel's plan and succeed in purchasing the sage's grimoire. And then Alice, who is using the 2, and the root cause of the twist in the story. While he don't know why she betrayed Lortel, she must be with her on the 5th floor, causing Ed to think to get there to get rid of Alice. But he knows, even if he don't go there, as per the scenario, Taylor's party will encounter her, so he is going to leave her in their hands. And he trusts them, because he has already confirmed their abilities. And so, he has to handle the matter here. As long as he can keep Elt here, events in the Awfulest Hall should continue as they should. And so, he starts his act of recognizing Elt, saying that he is sure there must be a reason for someone like him to be here. But he should talk to the academy first, and make sure that they treat him with the respect he deserves. Hearing this all, Elt gets angry and realizes that Ed is on Lortel's side. We go back to 10 minutes ago, and see Janica and Ed blowing up a hole in a wall. And it's the wall to Zig's room, to whom Ed asks, what is he doing inside his room, while everything outside is a mess, and he replies that he was just avoiding any rash actions, since it's not like a building falling on him will kill him. Causing Ed to wonder if it's the confidence of the strong. Zix gets up and asks Ed, why did he destroy the wall? Because it's going to be cold now when he sleeps. And looking at his body, Ed is reluctant to call him a mage. And upon noticing Janica with Ed, he greets her properly, since they didn't have the best interaction during the Glaskin incident, and she apologizes to him for that. Ed tells Janica to not be dejected by it, since she already got punished for it, and Janica thanks her for that. And seeing their interaction, he asks them if they too are dating, causing Janica to get flustered as she denies it quickly. She looks at Ed's expression to see his reaction and asks if it bothered him, and he replies it didn't, and calls it Zix's fault for asking such question, who quickly apologizes for that. He then again asks the reason for which they destroyed the wall to meet him, and Ed asks him to do a favor, which he plans on repaying him later. We go back to the scene where Ed was greeting Elt, and Janica and Zix were standing behind and hiding. He asks Ed if he fell for her dull appearance, and he should learn to take the clear advantage in front of him rather than being loyal to gold coins that he don't know if he would receive or not. He tries to get Ed out of the way by telling how backstabbing Lortel is and offers him double the gold coin that she offered. He thanks him for the offer, but reveals that he wasn't offered any coins for this, so there is no point in doubling that. And since Elt's words isn't going through Ed, his henchman gets ready to kill him, and he orders them to dispose of Ed quietly. Ed quickly tries to escape, but they block his route, but just then they get attacked by Zix. Ed runs away while telling them that he would come back after checking out the situation and will repay him later. Janica agrees without hesitation, and Zix replies that he was the one who was indebted to him in the first place. Elt tells his men to go all out since their opponents are not ordinary despite being students. Ed breaks through some obstacles and plans to meet up with Lortel to ask her about the situation, and he finds her hiding in a corner, causing him to ask her if she couldn't get out, while she seems to be taken back by his question. Ed quickly suggests to take her back through the back door and tells her to run as fast as she can. There is always a reason for someone's goodwill. Shero, the Elt merchant's receptionist, acts all flirty with Lortel because he anticipates her to give out some money-making information. Cadden, one of the employees there, becomes lively in front of her because she often tips him about stuff. Even her pet parrot that she raised at the academy stays with her because she feeds him with the highest quality food. All good will come with some reason like that as a tag, at least in Lortel's world. While running, Ed confirms with her that Alice betrayed her, and Lortel thinks that it's her fault, a really stupid mistake. She knew Janica grew up receiving love and goodwill of others to the point where she herself treated the world in the same way, but she is not like her. The time when she made Ed the offer, Lortel saw the hearted look in Janica's eyes when she looked at Ed, and seeing her, without wanting anything in return or greed, made Lortel thought that she had a chance to have that kind of relationship as well, and ended up spilling all of her plans to Alice, not realizing that her hopes will be put to shame in comparison to her attitude in life, where she never completely trusted anyone. And even after seeing Janica like that, Lortel thinks that she shouldn't have lost the sight of her own gloomy self, and shouldn't have dared to think that someone like her could have a romantical life. To occupy the Awfulest Hall, she bought off 5 people. Alice, Shinny, and Kelly joined hands with Elt, and Welaine also wanted to join him, so he won't be taking her side. And the same goes for Ed, she believes, and so she suddenly stops and apologizes to him, while not understanding why is she saying all this to him, since he is supposed to be her ally. She tells Ed that she cannot guarantee him the offered 20 gold coins, not understanding why is she saying shit about surrendering because no one is taking her side. But when Ed replies if he even asked for it, Lortel's eyes widen in surprise. He quickly grabs her arm, saying that they don't have time, so she shouldn't be just standing there, since if Elt catches her, it's going to be all over. To plan the future or do anything else, they would need to escape first, wouldn't they? As they both run hand in hand. Lortel is completely stunned, since goodwill and trust supposed to have a reason for them, while Ed asks her to tell him what is going on. Lortel knows if one cannot see that reason for goodwill, she shouldn't trust one. It is how it's supposed to be. But she starts explaining to Ed that Merchantry headquarters plan to rig the market prices, but it must be her father's doing. After the massive hunt of monsters in Easter Mountain last summer, the prices of armor fell, so they started to purchase and monopolize them internally, and Ed replies that their plan is manipulative trading. She don't have to explain in length. She is a bit surprised by his response, but agrees, and continues that for his plan, Elt needed money urgently. He found someone who will be the sage's grimoire at high price, so he sent her to this academy to look for a way to steal it. And Ed replies that she don't need to explain the rest. He understands that in manipulative trading, merchants A, B, and C monopolize a cheap product in the market and increase its price artificially by trading amongst each other, It's a classic method for manipulation. And since the product's price continuously rises at an unbelievable rate that people believe it would soon be unaffordable, causing them to think that they need to buy it right now. And so, if they sell their gathered product at this moment, they can make a huge profit. But this requires trust. If merchants B and C sell the product without A's knowledge, then the price would instantly fall. And merchant A, who desperately sold off their bonds in order to mass buy and monopolize it, Elt would be put in a difficult situation where he could lose his power because of the sudden huge loss. For this plan, Lortel bought off countless others that were related to merchant B and C for many years. But only when Elt is away from his position can the 6 big merchants she bought off have the rights to sale transferred to them. She was planning this all to burn a huge hole in Academy's finances, so there could be a chance of negotiation talks of sages to succeed, since it would bring Elt out of the headquarters and force him to get the money he needs urgently, in order for her to get the chance to sell of the armor at the headquarters. Lortel is quite shocked by Ed learning of the whole situation with a single glance, as he tells her that there is only one thing they need to do. They need to somehow get the message to headquarters to sell the armor, and she replies that she got a carrier pigeon in her room, which is her direct line of communications with the forces inside. Ed replies that it means as long as she send the pigeon and stay hidden, it would all be done. Lortel replies that her father is probably expecting that, and he is surely planning to capture her tonight and make the traitors inside confess about the whole plan. Ed thinks for a bit and tells Lortel to listen carefully. He instructs her to stay hidden and let no one see her. If he were in Elt's place, he would have people stand by at the 2 bridges that lead to Arkan Mountains. She should talk to the horseman in the quarters and send an empty carriage to the Arkan Mountains and tell him to leave the carriage at a suitable spot and run away from there, which will cause the pursuers to think that she is on the outskirts of Arkan Mountains. She then asks what she should do, and he instructs her to hide in an incomplete hut that is in the forests of the north. She needs to hold out for 3 days there. He will send the pigeon in her stead, and if he write a simple message, they should understand and take care of the complex matters, wouldn't they? Which Lortel agrees. And upon peeking from the gate, he quickly holds Lortel tightly, telling her that there is someone guarding the back door. He would take care of them, so she should run into her room and wait there until the person is gone and then escape to quarters. Lortel thinks that he made a move and handled matters without wasting any time. The thought that she could trust and leave it all to him is actually crossing her mind right now. Ed tells her to get back to her senses and calls her out for being so out of it, unlike her usual self, and she agrees without being in any focus, thinking that it might work, and asks Ed, why on earth is he helping her so much? This puts Ed on a spot, since it's such a sudden question, and replies, it's for no reason, he just feels like he should, and leaves. She drops down from all those feelings and surprises, and her heart starts to beat really fast. She notices a loud sound coming while she pants hard. She wonders if the sound is from the fight between Alice and Taylor and his friends, but rejects, realizing that it's coming from somewhere closer, and wonders if it's from a fight on the first floor. But rejects that as well, as she realizes it's from someplace even closer, a place from where she cannot believe it. As she finally realizes that it's the sound of her heartbeat as she blushes hard while having tears in her eyes. Meanwhile, on the outside, Shani finds it unexpected that Ed is the one who came out of the back door, though she prepares to fight him regardless. Ed gets ready as well, saying, for the supposed last obstacle, she feels kind of bland, and thinks that this painstaking attempted takeover has finally reached its end. All of the Awfulest Hall runes went to the one with the command. The swordsman who could hold her own in front of the combat faculty students, and an intermediate magic faculty student, without flaws, Chief made Alice. But despite all that, she couldn't defeat Taylor. And that is because he is the main character. Now below the Awfulest Hall, we see Shani getting ready for her fight with Ed. And Ed, who is almost out of mana, and only have 2 or 3 basic spells left in him. Shani rushes off Ed into attack, and quickly closes the distance to end him in one strike. But Ed is able to dodge the attack, as he lifts his leg up, which was where she was aiming. He already knew that her first attack is definitely going to be a stab aiming for his leg, while she is surprised that Ed is able to dodge her attack like that. Ed already knows this pattern, and so he stops her sword by stepping on it, causing Shani to reach out for the hidden knives on her thighs. But he grabs them before she can and throws the whole strap away. She starts to get nervous, and Ed also knows the privilege of the twin sisters, blessed by the same start from the birth. As we see Shinny using the ability sharing and low-level telekinesis through it, the knife starts flying towards Ed, and some of them stabs him as well, which he doesn't dodge at all. Shinny smirks at first, but quickly realizes that Ed didn't dodge them on purpose. As we see, he didn't even flinch, as the borrowed abilities are not refined, so the wounds from the flying blades are not deep. He simply takes out the blades and throws them away, and also kicks her sword away from her hand. He starts to press down on her, telling her that this is it, as she screams in pain. She starts to cry, shouting that she cannot disappoint Miss Alice, and tells Ed to move away. But Ed tells her that Alice will lose, to which Shinny replies, "What does he even know about her? Does he know how much pain she has endured, what kind of battles she has fought, and how many orphans has she saved?" With Shinny being one of them as well, though Ed thinks that he really doesn't know much about her at all, because the story didn't go into too much depth about Alice's background. Shinny continues on that if it weren't for Alice, then she would have never be able to work a normal job like this, and never would have she been able to earn money for herself. In fact, she believes that she wouldn't even be alive if not for Alice. She keeps on telling Ed that he don't know anything about her, while we see a huge explosion occurs at the location of Alice and Taylor's fight. But Ed, even after knowing this story, still feels the same and tells Shinny that it's none of his business. She starts to cry, telling Ed that she would never forgive him for taking Lortel's side, and finally passes out. With Ed thinking that he sadly don't know any of the extra stories, what does she expect him to do something about he don't know? As there is already way too many stories that will never come to light. And if one is to compare all of the losses today with Alice's rescuing of orphans this whole time, and weigh the good and evil she has done, people who decide their course of actions based on such philosophies are the ones with lives worth living at the moment. But for Ed, his ultimate goal hasn't changed from when he first possessed this body, and that is to simply survive in this world. And now for incapacitating Shinny, Ed gets a new skill as a reward, which is something he cannot believe he hasn't got until now. He then breaks the window of a room and gets inside of it. He looks around and notices the luxurious wooden furniture and various decorations arranged as per necessity. The desk is piled up with papers and the books are arranged neatly in rows, which Ed believes is something that suits Lortel. He then finds the pigeon in her room and writes his message on the paper to sell all the products. And now the carrier pigeon flying its way through the rain in the night sky will come back with Elt's head. And now Ed starts walking towards his hut, hoping the cuts would heal as soon as the flesh is healed. If not for the help of Janica and Zix and some other opportune students, Lortel would have been captured by Elt, and her downfall would have been swift. But by now, the carriage that she hired is probably speeding out of the Arkan Mountains, and Elt would have no choice but to chase it. And even if he captures the coachman and forces him to admit that Lortel never left, by that time the carrier pigeon he sent would have arrived, and Elt's resignation would be complete. And if it all goes according to his plan, then Lortel should be waiting for him at the hut, and suddenly he notices Lortel coming out, as he tells her that it's nice of her to greet him like this. But quickly, Ed's thought changes, thinking that he was a bit complacent, as his opponent is the golden daughter Lortel. In this case, the only one who know that she is the secret mastermind are the 5 persons she bribed. Since Elt is gone, Alice has to rely on Lortel, and Shinny and Kelly will follow, and Welaine can be bought like before. But in Lortel's perspective, he is the only variable that cannot be bought off by money. And so, if she were to get rid of him in this remote part of woods, her perfect crime would be a success. Her real character is of the secret mastermind. She would dispose and use of any human she can get her hands on, a true villain. Ed gets scared, thinking that he needs to do something to survive, but his body isn't listening. And as Lortel gets close with him with a knife and seemingly does a stabbing action. But instead of hurting Ed, she cuts off a piece of her own cloth and ties it on his arm to stop the bleeding. While questioning, why did he have to get so hurt? And this action of her greatly surprises him. She supports him by the arms and tells him that she also built a bonfire since the rain stopped, and suggests to warm up together with her at the bonfire while blushing. Now around a campfire, he asks Lortel if she handled everything as per the plan, to which she replies, "Who does he think she is?" She made the horseman promise her. He told her that he would try to draw as much attention as possible even if he had to put his life on the line, surprising Ed for how loyal he is, hoping she haven't kidnapped his family or anything. and gets nervous thinking about it. She also tells Ed that she would have the power of Elt merchants if this plan goes through, and that she also owes him a big one, which should cheer him up and make him feel that she is awesome. But Ed doesn't reply anything back, making Lortel remark his boring reaction. But regardless, she thanks him for whatever he has done for her. But Ed asks her to instead hand over the 20 gold coins she promised, which she plans to as well. But there is another thing that she would like to ask him. She wanted to ask him about Janica, which is about his closeness with Janica, which he agrees, complimenting that she is a good person, and Lortel agrees that she respects her as well, as she is kind and a great senior. And Ed asks, what about it? To which she falls silent for a moment, and blushes while saying that she is not that nice like her. Now we switch scenes to Awfulus Hall, where Elt left after receiving a certain letter from his underling. Jix wasn't doing great in fighting the merchants, but he instead had to stop his own comrades in the fight. Janica was in a rage. Her spirits were going all out as Jix tried telling her that it's enough. She needed to stop before any casualty could take place, as Jix asks her if she is mad. One of her spirits seems to be saying something to her ears, causing her to be left silent for a moment. She soon turns to Jix, while replying that she is not mad at all. Fast forward, Ed wasn't able to attend the class since his uniform was completely destroyed. But Jix came and lent him his, while also informing of all the incidents. Welaine took the blame for destroying the hall, and Alice, who was captured, is completely silent. And seeing how there is no response from Elt's side, Lortel's plan seems to have worked. This incident also affected his labor power negatively, since he is not in a good shape and his body is sore at places. Even though it's demanding work for him, he still needs to get it done. With his advanced crafting skill slots open, getting more skills takes priority for him, and he already decided on which to master. Spirit Formula Infusion, something compatible with spirit sorcery and magic engineering, great for crafting household and combat items. For Spirit Formula, after contracting with a spirit and crafting at least one artifact that contains the formula, it becomes instinctive, and for magic engineering, it is unlocked after successfully disassemble and assemble of an item of certain level. He don't plan to waste on the spirit slots and plans to catch a lower spirit to make contract, as we see Janica also cheerfully arriving and greeting Ed, who replies back the same. He asks if she is not going to classes, but she expresses that she got a headache and pain in her body and decided to get some rest in the woods, causing Ed to ask if she is sure that she is unhurt from helping him, and she quickly disagrees. She also asks about Lortel's condition, to which he replies that she is fine and has been resting inside the cabin, making Janica glare angrily there. Even though the incident is over, Lortel realizes there is still much left to do, persuading Alice and laying the groundwork for negotiation for Sage's sealed grimoire. But while she waits for a reply from Elt Merchant's headquarters, she has to stay in this cabin with an anxious heart. Even though it's frustrating for her, she don't hate it. It's because of Ed, who makes her heart race. His unconditional kindness and trust without expecting anything in return makes her feel safe. The sensation, which is natural for everyone else, is more precious to her than gold, who had spent her entire life on the cold floor of the streets. And at no cost does she want to give it up to someone else, especially not to Janica Failover. Janica's life was already full of overflowing amount of unconditional love from family and friends, and we see Lortel getting annoyed, thinking about Janica to let her have one since she already have so much. And if she doesn't want to give him up, then she would simply fight for him, which is her area of expertise. And the days where she is living with Ed is a thrilling advantage for her. She first thinks to use her own way and perhaps fill the cabin with gold for him, but quickly thinks against it, since showing too much sympathy might be bad, and thinks to perhaps pay for his tuition and be natural as possible about it. And we see her acting all tsundere in her imagination, telling Ed that she is paying it for his sake, so he shouldn't misunderstand. Though it only makes her cringe, as we see she never had a boyfriend. Suddenly, she hears someone asking her to move, and when she looks behind, she finds Lucy entering the cabin. She is surprised seeing her here, and asks her purpose to be here, and she replies that it's the best spot for sunlight. But Ed comes in and quickly picks her up, only for her to throw a tantrum as he throws her into a wooden shelter, asking Lortel if she woke up due to Lucy sneaking into the cabin, and asks her to go back to sleep again, To which Lortel comments that Lucy must come in often with a grumpy tone. But he tells her to just think of her as a natural disaster, but Lortel thinks of her as another rival instead. But she still believes that she got plenty of time to settle the score. Now we see Lortel's cabin life, morning of day 2. She cheerfully greets Ed, but instead of him, Janica comes along and greets her instead. And she starts talking to Ed afterward, leaving Lortel sighing. And contrary to her wishes, the time she can spend alone with Ed rarely came by. Switching to Ed, who finally makes bricks through his crafting, and it levels up as well. And with that, he is able to craft a fireplace as well in his cabin, which he couldn't build before due to the incident. We then see them sitting down to eat, with Lortel noting that nothing much has happened and assumes things must be going safe due to it, and Ed replies that while it's good news, they cannot let their guard down. Which Lortel agrees with and also comments that there are tons of things left to do, such as giving him his compensation, and asks if he would like the gold or receive some goods instead. Ed replies that perhaps he would like some construction materials or excess magic engineering equipments, while we see Janica sulking in the background due to their interaction. She starts to get more and more grumpy as Ed and Lortel converse, with Lortel offering to give him the spares. He then suddenly speaks to Janica about a favor that he wants to ask of her, which takes her by surprise. He asks her to help with learn some spirit magic, and that he wants to try contacting with at least a lower spirit. And she immediately agrees, saying that it would make him his teacher, and she would help him make a contact with an intermediate-level spirit in no time. She tries spirit connection first, and asks him to focus and tells the spirit to try talking to Ed. But the bird replies that Ed cannot, and he needs to improve his spirit connection to the point where he can hear them talk, while Ed can only hear faintly, though Janica believes he would improve quickly. The bird argues that Ed would have no time and recites his whole schedule and their weekly report meeting about Ed in front of him, saying that he cannot be distracted by other things as he needs to concentrate on his cabin construction. Janica panics hearing the bird revealing her stalking habits and quickly shuts her up, while she nervously asks Ed if he heard anything, who replies that he heard something about weekly report meeting, leaving her sweating. Lortel peeks behind him and asks if he is done talking, as Lortel tells that they have more leftover stock than expected, so she can give him a good amount, and Ed asks her to try and settle it with the promised 20 gold coin as much as possible. But she replies to not worry about it, as they are just dead asset, so she plans to give them away for free. But she quickly gets an idea and instead tells him to come to the Merchant Association once every 3 days. She would give him a large discount then, and they can have some tea as well. Janica asks her to give them away for free since Ed helped her so much, and she replies that she is a merchant, so she has to be professional. Janica calls it an excuse, and Lortel asks, for what would she do that, though Ed is focused on not being able to start with magic engineering right away. Suddenly, Belle Maya arrives, and she seems to be looking for Lortel. She apologizes for barging in suddenly when it doesn't seem peaceful, and she has some bad news. She also became the new chief maid. But she also informs Lortel that she has a message from the former chief maid. We now go back in time a bit, where Clara wanted to discuss something top secret with Belle Maya, something which she should not tell anyone, or even show her shock. And she whispers in her ear that Janica likes Ed, none other than that infamous Ed Rothstaler. Maya wonders if she should act surprised for politeness, and tells Clara that she must be worried now, who expression her confusion at Janica for falling for a ruffian, though she does realize that his reputation is improving a bit, and as her friend she supports her. But it's not all. These days, Janica also keeps mentioning a certain name, which is Lortel, who missed the opening ceremony like Ed, and yesterday she saw them both absent from the first common class together. Clara does know relationship is about push and pull, in which Janica doesn't stand a chance, but she doesn't understand Ed either, who she believes is pretending not to notice Janica when she is being so obvious, which makes him wonder if he is a hard heart or just a creepy cunning wolf. Maya defends Ed, saying that perhaps he is in too difficult of a situation to be interested in dating. But Clara doesn't believe it, and imagines him grinning at his good luck instead. Back to the present, Maya goes on to assess the situation: a sly, thieving cat in front of a fish shop, a naive kitten trembling before a tiger, and just a cat. She suddenly rubs finger over her forehead, causing Ed to ask if something is wrong, and she replies that just looking at them is giving her a headache. More importantly, Lortel asks about the message which she wanted to say, which she replies, is from the chief maid, Alice. Fast forward to night. Janica leaves with anxiety, and Maya takes Lucy with herself and leaves as well. But Ed is still worried about Lortel's whereabouts being exposed to someone who is working at the Awfulest Hall right now. As Lortel asks if the uniform he got isn't too worn out to wear, but he finds it decent enough. The carrier pigeon also arrived with the news of victory, and it is now time for them to prepare for school, as usual. Lortel burns the letter, noting that his father must be making his last stand right now, and would have no time to care about them here in Sylvania. Ed asks if there is a chance for Elt to have something up his sleeve, and she replies, the chances are not zero, but still, Slog, who aspires to be the association chairman, is supporting her, so she has no choice but to trust him. Her biggest concern was Alice, but she has been taken care of for now. Ed asks if she won't reveal the mastermind behind this, and she replies that she has no choice. It was a prepaid concept. She was planning to side with whoever won between her or Elt. The document that Maya delivered was filled with the list of orphanages she sponsored and the maintenance cost for them. Alice worked tirelessly and her health deteriorated. But the academy ignored her complaints, and she eventually became unable to take responsibility for the orphanage. So she made a bet with her life on the line. Because of her stoic and unemotional nature, no one realized just how dire of a situation she was in. Except her followers, who seems to have somewhat understood her situation and mentality. She is only siding with her because Lortel's victory seems certain, and even though lost trust is difficult to regain, she is still surprised that Alice sent her this instead of a threat. Ed looks at Lortel, knowing that in World of Merchants, there is no such thing as sympathy. Making that mistake will make you treated as a fool, which Lortel should know better than anyone. Lortel doesn't see a reason for Alice to reveal about her, so she plans to play along believing there is no such thing as permanent enemies or ally, and she somehow seems relieved to Ed. She also starts taking her leave, and asks to stop by Merchant Association branch to write the contract, which he agrees to. He then offers her a torch to light up her away, but she just stands there, thinking about something. Ed asks about her thoughts, and she replies that he is taller than she thought, which Ed feels was out of nowhere. She suddenly starts blushing, saying that it seems rushed, but if she wants to win, she has to make risky moves sometimes. She moves close to him, saying that the essence of relationship is push and pull, like the tie which is looking twisted. Ed replies that no one is looking at him, and if his attire bother her too much, and she replies, there is nothing wrong with keeping yourself looking neat. And as Ed is about to ask what does she mean, she suddenly pulls him with the tie, and gives him a good kiss right on his lips under the pretense of fixing his tie. She blushes while commenting about feeling the taste of raspberries which they ate, thinking about which makes her happy. Ed gets nervous as well, and tries to tell her to keep in limits, but she teasingly calls it upsetting, and how people don't like others pushing or pulling too much. And next time, she would have him pull a little, since she needs to practice pushing away as well. And while going back, she seems quite flustered inside and stumbles on her way, and falls as well, with Ed noting that he keeps on trying to avoid getting involved with the main characters too much. But as expected, when it comes to this life, nothing goes according to his plan, as we see him blushing hard as well. Ed feels the trajectory of the scenario that he is involved in going astray, and regardless of his will, he is feeling that he is being sucked into the center of the story. But his plan to watch from the sideline and only take care of what he thinks is need has not changed. He don't have any greed. He just plans to get his diploma and pay attention to his stats. But the realization that his plan, which was supposed to be easy, was actually reckless came not too far in the future. And just like that, summer passed, and it's now fall already. We switch scenes to Janica, who is informed by her spirit about the foxy redhead kissing Master Ed. And they that cannot just sit idly by and have to intervene, otherwise it's going to be problem, but Janica doesn't get what does she mean. Tarkan speaks up that he saw it as well, and finds youth amazing, and that Lortel really knows how to play with people's hearts. Janica freaks out and asks about Ed's reaction to the kiss, and Tarkan replies that he did put up a wall, and his expression didn't flinch at all, surprising even Tarkan for how cold Ed was. He even cringed watching them, and assumes it could mean two things, either that he is impotent or he doesn't see her as a woman, which seems to relieve Janica. But Taken starts shouting at her that Lortel is someone who gets more obsessed the more she gets knocked down, and if Janica doesn't do something, he would get taken away, but she argues that Taken just told her that his reaction was cold to the kiss. At this point, he starts to get dragged away by other spirits, as he tries to shout at Janica to do something and at least kiss him when they are alone, but the blue spirit tells her to not listen to his words, since she is most charming when she is herself. Taken comes up again, saying that it's not a bad idea either, and asks if she ever imagined doing something fresh and exciting with Ed. About which, she blushes and replies, feeding each other, leaving the spirit speechless. Meanwhile, we see Ed feeding Lucy by hand, whose eyes immediately lit up as she finds it really gross to eat. Ed takes note from the cooking, realizing that he should put off cooking on his own for now, while Lucy nags at him for using her as a test subject for his cooking. His dexterity stat, which he had the highest number of points on, was heavily connected to his life skills proficiencies. If he raises just one stat, the efficiency would decrease, so he needs to raise them evenly. But the problem is time. School has started, and the time he can completely use for survival activities is only 5 or 6 hours. And it is now time for him to think how to efficiently manage his time for it, because he needs the time to check whether the scenario is running well. Whenever he had the chance, he was making sure to keep a close eye on the main characters of the story, and the most important characters were the MC and the 4 heroines. Taylor was part of the combat department. Even though he couldn't see him much, he still seemed to be growing up well, and his companion Ayla seemed to be doing her role well too. Princess Phineas seems to be doing well too. It was almost time for her to clash with Lortel as well. Clarice wouldn't be starting school till next year, so he doesn't worry about it. But Lortel was the one he found in most unstable situation. He didn't know what type of changes would occur due to Elt's early dismissal. Apart from that, he couldn't see any change in her plan. And he needs more time lately as well, because he needs to check the professor's building as well. As we see Professor Glast, who notes that there is a black curtain behind the incident of Awfulus Hall, and he is also the final boss of Act 2. But what Professor Glast is thinking is actually the thought of Assistant Professor Claire Elfin. She apparently has good intuition. But he also tells her to not miss the important stuff, which is the thesis he asked her to find. His expression leaves her scared as she promises to find it by tomorrow. Now at Awfulus Hall, office building at Claire's office. She thanks Anise for gathering all the materials related to the Awfulus incident, and she starts to take a look at it. She doesn't understand her reason for concern over an incident, which is almost wrapped up already. But she feels something is off, no matter how she looks at it, as her eyes shifts to Edroth Taylor. Switching to home, he is apologized by Lortel as she makes up an excuse that she forgot about their contract. And so, he would have to visit again and offers him tea and some refreshments as an apology. She also gives him the magic engineering equipment which is left on the counter, though Ed also notes her attire and asks about it, which she again makes up an excuse for, that she has an important appointment, so she tried to dress up a bit and asks for his opinion on her look. Ed tries to inquire about it, and she anxiously replies that it's something he doesn't know about. She then asks about his cabin's status, which Ed claims to be in its final stages, causing her to remark that he would need some furniture for it then. But Ed replies that the furniture their company trade is too high-end and expensive for him. Lortel replies that she cannot give them for free, since it would go against her ethics as a merchant. And so instead she breaks one of the chair's leg, knowing and commenting on how Ed's woodworking is his speciality. And since this chair cannot be sold, it would be discarded, causing Ed to again remark that it is really high-end, but thanks her regardless. Lortel gives off a slight smile, while questioning her amazement for Ed having no change in expression at all. She then begins to move closer to him, and sits on the table right in front of him, and makes him remember how she made the winning move, and that perhaps he don't see her as a woman, but she does see him as a man, and it also means exactly what he is thinking. As even this help she is offering is because of her ulterior motive, and Ed replies that he knows what answer she is looking for. But she tells him that she wasn't expecting an answer, as he may know that she don't engage in fight she cannot win. So even though he might be indifferent to her now, she believes someday she won't be the only one who cannot contain herself. A seductive smile is always the same, whether the odds are in your favor or if you are in a tight spot. And it's in a merchant's nature to never reveal their true feelings. Now back to school. Janica is excited and starting to teach Ed about spirit magic. She takes out her staff and summons a spirit, and asks Ed to try to focus his magic and form a connection, which he does, and we see a spirit is formed, who quickly greets Ed as young master. It's a low-rank fire spirit, Mug, who salutes Ed tightly and introduces himself. He quickly starts explaining his qualifications to him, and the tests he took to be able to get selected as his spirit, and all of his records and stats, leaving Ed nervous and speechless. While playing this game, Ed once got a spirit-type skill. They would laugh together, joke around, and cheer each other during battles, and ended up creating a strong bond. And right now, he is really not getting those same vibes, as he asks Janica, why is he so strict, who replies that since he asked her to introduce him to a good spirit, she selected someone with good efficiency ratio among those she is contracted with. And the process was something she believes was very slightly, teeny tiny complicated selection process, which made Ed question who even planned such process. Which she answers, Tarkan did, who was seemingly really strict with them. And with that, she hands him over the spirit to hold. And Ed immediately comments how warm it is, which Janica explains is something which happens when he connects with a contract spirit, but he has to make sure to not connect too hard or it would get too hot. Ed asks, if he controls the level of connection, can he change the firepower as well? Leaving Janica a bit taken back, since referring it to firepower makes it sound like he is holding some machine. And Ed is instead focused on Mug being a portable heater for him, as his eyes sparkle bright, and finds him an insane survival tool, not even requiring firewood to burn. Janica is also glad to see Ed happy, since he always have an exhausted expression. She also asks to tell her if he needs anything else. She plans to teach him about the power of connection and senses, which he would learn faster if he is with her, and if he needs to reach a level to contract mid-level spirits, they would need to practice combat as well, which would require combat training. And suddenly, in between all this, she stops herself from talking, and instead puts up an act that she is also a busy person, since people are lining up to be her student, so it's difficult to make time for him. She remembers Tarkan and Clara telling her to play push and pull with Ed, as she tells Ed if it's not too much to ask her to teach him spirit magic just like that. Ed agrees and gets concerned and quickly starts taking out money, saying that he should at least offer this much, leaving her quite surprised. But she stops him from doing so, as he is struggling as it is, and giving her money in exchange for what she did is too cold. Because they are closer than that, so it's making her feel sad now, and Ed confusedly asks if she wasn't the one who asked for compensation right now. So what is wrong all of a sudden, which leaves Janica blushing and stuttering with her words. But she finally speaks up and almost tells Ed about the push and pull thing, but quickly subverts that her friends told her she is too naive and should learn to decline more often, which is something Ed agrees with. But she also tells him that she is not like this with everyone. But regardless, she tells him to meet at the combat training ground next, as she plans to reserve it and let him know. And she also will bring him a good accessory. And if he needs textbooks or connection training, he can also let her know. And with that, they both part ways for the time being with waving hands. Fast forward to night. Ed seems busy and has finally learned an advanced skill thanks to the magic engineering supplies he got from Lortel, which were simple enough. He uses ignition on his fireplace, noting that if he runs out of fuel, he would use Mug, and if he runs out of mana, he would use the fireplace, so he can reliably warm the air now. His living environment is guaranteed to be stable now. Just knowing which is enough to make him feel a heavy weight has been lifted off his shoulders. He then notes how late it has gotten and decides to go out and check his traps first. And in the forest, Claire is here as well, who feels like there is a hidden mastermind behind the Awfulous incident, and she thinks it's Ed. Everyone else who were at the scene were either students or staff of the Awfulous Hall, but Ed and Taylor were the only ones who had no connection to it. And if she excludes Taylor, who solved this incident, it only leaves Ed. She came to this area since she heard Ed is often seen here. But unless he is eating and sleeping in the forest, she finds it unlikely that he would be wandering here in the middle of the night. Suddenly, she notices a killed animal covered in blood, and sees Ed dragging it away along with Lucy on his shoulder. Seeing Lucy, She remembers that Principal Abel is a great man comparable to the Archmage Glocht or the Great Sage of Sylvania. And even he would need to use his full power against Lucy Merrill, yet she is being carried away by Ed right now, which makes her certain in her suspicion that the Awfulest Hall takeover incident's hidden mastermind was Ed Roth Taylor. She calls herself a great detective upon finding out that her intuition was right. She follows Ed all the way to his cabin and is surprised from what she sees. He drops the hunt on the ground and Lucy inside her small hut, and plans to head to bed as well since he got lots of things to do early in the morning. Claire tries to sneak to Lucy to rescue her slowly, but as she tries to touch her, she gets attacked by her. Claire is quite surprised by her reaction as Lucy questions her identity, and she nervously introduces herself as their assistant professor of the year, but much to her surprise, Lucy goes back inside again. And we see her glaring at Claire from inside the hut while chewing on beef jerky. And soon enough, she quickly flies away while holding the pouch that Ed gave her, leaving Claire shocked. Fast forward to morning. She goes on to Professor Glast and asks if he knows Ed, and he replies that he don't bother remembering the name of worthless trash, but Claire finds it very standoffish thing to say and asks if he knows Lucy then. As that Lucy was overpowered by Ed to the point where she couldn't use her power, which she found out by going to the northern forest, but before she could explain the reason, Glass calls her story all over the place. But Claire begins using magic which has recorded the memory of the first floor of the Awfulest Hall. Glass asks if she got permission, which she didn't, and made up a lie to get the memories. So Glass asks her to write an apology with explanation, which she already did in advance upon expecting this. In the memories, they see Ed striking a pose like a true mastermind, which Claire points out to Glass. He asks if this is all she got, and she again tries to say about him carrying Lucy while she was unconscious, and Glass asks if she is sure that he wasn't just moving her while she was asleep. An argument which leaves her speechless as she gets kicked out while being told to bring an apology and explanation. Glass peeks at the memory, noting that it was in the report as well that Ed tried to stop Taylor and his friends, but they got past in no time. Taylor, born with the way of the sword saint, and Alvira, born with natural insights of an alchemist. So he doesn't believe there is any way someone as ordinary as him could stop those two. That is, until he sees him fight, and we see Glass genuinely getting interested in Ed and being quite surprised. Back to the forest, we can hear a huge explosion and see a dagger. And we see that Ed has added spirit formula to the dagger for explosion. It is something he had since he started living on his own, and now with all these engraving on it, he feels kind of proud. Mug tells him that formula was permeated quite smoothly, and the more he uses the dagger, the better the efficiency would get. Mug starts to go on and praises Ed to high heavens while being extremely formal with him. And so, Ed quickly picks up by his wings, and Mug starts to apologize even without knowing what he did wrong. But much to his surprise, Ed tells him to drop the formalities. Spirits can elevate their status through contracts, and Ed understands why they would be pleased to have contract with someone like Janica, which makes him question Mug. What is so good about making a contract with him that he is making such a fuss? And if he was promised something else, leaving Mug stumbling with his words. But Ed asks him to spit it all out since they are going to be together for a long time. Mug breaks down and apologizes to Ed, as being in contract with him and receiving refined magic from the vicinity of Janica will allow him to grow twice as fast. Ed asks, what else? And he replies that he heard about his reputation from the academy and that he has an authoritarian temperament, so to appease him he did this. Ed understands and asks him to be natural with him, and Mug also starts chuckling and explaining how hard it was to act like that, and expresses his annoyance at spirits being so mean when it comes to their ranking. But Ed tells him to go easy since they are all doing this to live. But regardless, Mug still finds it comfortable to talk to him in a formal manner, which Ed allows him to do so. Although Ed's combat skills are low, he is still making slow progress, and his stamina has greatly increased, not being inferior to an average adult. His storage is stocked with meat, vegetables, spices, and such, and he no longer needs to sleep outside while hungry. He can easily master the classes with simple memory and sequence theories with enough time and effort. Every day is a forced march for him, and while he cannot say these days are gentle on him, they are still much better than when he started. And we now see Ed being suddenly woken up by Janica, who tries to snap him out of it and asks if something is wrong. He replies that he was thinking about something and got out of it, and she tells him to not overdo it as his health is more important. But he has to focus. He got 3 letters today. First was from the academy, second was from the merchantry. But the third one is most important, because it's the evidence that story has already changed significantly. The main event of Act 2 is the negotiation for purchasing of the grimoire. It was originally a tug-of-war between the academy and the merchantry. But since Elt's downfall, the original person who requested the grimoire, Crapin Rothtailor, the head of his family, got involved. Crapin planned to use to research eternal life, and when things got south, he jumped into negotiations. He is supposed to be a boss who appears only in Act 4. But no matter, he decides to exclude him from this episode somehow. If he gets the grimoire, he would walk away coolly, but he gets it after being strong enough to become the final boss of Act 4. It might become impossible to clear the game. The letter includes Kreplin's actions and suspicions about them. It also has an invitation for him. We now switch scenes to Princess Phinia, who is the sender of that letter. Apparently, Principal Abel came to her, since the financial situation of Sylvania is already desperate. She is unable to provide them as support as she wants, and if this goes on, the merchantry would get the grimoire. She finds it embarrassing to be sold for money when it's something like the heart of the academy, so Abel secretly asked for her help. Phinia finds it strange, wondering how did Crapin knew to participate in the negotiations? Claire suggests that Ed did it, because if he was in his shoes, he would do everything he can to be acknowledged by the family again. But Lortel arrives and calls it doubtful, and asks if someone like her of low status have tea with the princess. Princess finds it unexpected, since she thought Lortel hated her, and she replies that it's an unfair accusation, otherwise she wouldn't have offered him such sincere advice, and informs her that Crapin getting involved in this negotiation is due to her father and not Ed. Hearing which surprises Phinia, and Lortel continues that Crapin was the one who requested her father to buy it for him, but she had no idea about it, and he still plans to get the grimoire. Phinia finds it strange, and questions if Elt's merchants not planning to sell the grimoire to Rothtailor in the end. To her it seems like their two families' interests align. Lortel replies that she has no intention of selling it to Rothtailor family, since it's better for her to not get too close to the business connections associated with her father. Phinia asks, why is she telling her the internal matters like that, and Lortel replies, because an enemy of her enemy is her friend, since she would benefit from keeping Rothtailor family in check, and she would get the grimoire, making it a win-win situation. And she also stepped in thinking that poor Ed might suffer because of it, and Phinia is surprised to know that she is worried about Ed. Lortel replies that he is already separated from his family and is living his new life, so it would be unfair if he were misunderstood as being connected to his family. Phinia is surprised to see Lortel being worried about someone else, and calls Ed quite useful regardless, and that she might even ask his help on a personal level, appeal to authority, and even give out orders. But if he still doesn't open his mouth, then... And Lortel asks, if he doesn't, then what is she planning to do? And Phinia replies then she would have no choice but to use him. Hearing which, Lortel puts down the cup and starts getting up, and starts chuckling while saying something about deceive and exploit, with her behavior confusing Phinia. Lortel finally ends up laughing while asking, who is exploiting who again? Claire gets angry at Lortel for saying such stuff in front of the princess, but Phinia stops him. She continues that since they are allies just for this matter, she genuinely wanted to give her some sincere advice, which is to not try to use him in a half-assed attempt because she might end up being used instead. Claire again gets pissed at her for such impudence, but once again Phinia stops him. She finds it really confusing. She cannot tell what Ed is up to, on top of which Crapin suddenly joining the negotiation for the grimoire. But perhaps she thinks she needs to be wary of Lortel the most, as she wonders if she would ever get to see her get flustered or not know what to do. And we move on to see Lortel being completely surprised as Janica also came together with Ed this time and greets her happily. Lortel gets annoyed and offers her some cold water instead of tea, making up an excuse that she is out of it. But Janica is the same, subtly pointing towards the tea on the shelves, claiming that perhaps she cannot use it due to it being merchandise, which Lortel agrees with. Ed gives the tea to Janica and drinks the cold water himself. Regardless, Lortel tells Ed to take the magic engineering items from the shelf. Seeing which, Janica argues that they are all brand new and recalls Lortel's statements about a merchant not giving away stuff for free. To which she tells her to look carefully, as there seems to be a small defect in it, which makes Janica accuse her of doing it on purpose, but she replies that in the end, what matters is that it helps Ed. But Ed also feels wrong for taking it, since it's the fourth time already for taking the items, and she asks him to come and renew the contract regularly, and it won't be a problem. Janica suggests for Lortel to just pay him and end the contract quickly, but she replies that it's something for her and Ed to decide. While they are talking, Ed starts to feel a familiar sensation in his body again. It's like his body is floating in the water, and he has been feeling it quite often due to his workload. He again starts recounting of stuff he has to do, like keeping an eye on Krapin, making mattress for the bed, and also the preparation of the fawn he caught, cleaning the cabin, and also making Lucy's jerky. We see Ed falling unconscious as Janica and Lortel gets worried and calls out his name. We switch scenes to Princess Phinia, who thinks that she should acknowledge Ed, his resolute demeanor while fishing at the camp, his calmness and precision when he gave orders to solve the situation during the Glaskin battle, and his reputation among students, who says that he focuses only on studies, and Lortel's warning to not judge him lightly. So perhaps it was her insight which was off, and she needs to confirm it once again, which is why she ordered him to visit her in the royal residence. As Claire comes in, Phinia asks him, what time will Ed arrive, and he replies that he won't be able to visit for a while, causing her to argue the reason for it, since it's a royal order, so he shouldn't be able to refuse. And Claire informs her that Ed has apparently passed out from overwork, greatly surprising her. We see Ed starting to wake up and having the exhaustion debuff applied to him. He feels hard to breathe, and his lower belly feels hot, as we see Lucy is laying on top of him. She starts talking about jerky even in her sleep, leaving Ed quite confused at her behavior. Lucy is much lighter than she looks, and despite this, he isn't able to move himself at all, meaning there must be something wrong with his body right now, a total physical breakdown. Lucy also wakes up, saying that she is hungry, causing Ed to ask if she does nothing but eat and sleep. She congratulates him on waking up and tells about his mana being horribly distorted, and he has been overtraining in magic and learning spirit magic as well. Doing it all for months has caused this all. He asks if she was like this the whole time he was asleep, and she replies that it wasn't hard, but it was boring, so she kept falling asleep several times, and that she was walking on eggshells the whole time. It was quite hassle for her, but since it was necessary, they couldn't say much. She then requests Ed to not get sick, since people die from disease, making Ed remember that she watched her grandfather figure die in a bed from a disease. And Ed thanks her for the hard work. Suddenly, we see Jix is here as well, commenting about Ed being finally awake. He walks inside, and we see Lucy noticing him and quickly tries to get off of Ed and fly away from the chimney, making Jix question Ed, just how many times does this make it? But it does make sense for Jix, for strong men to have several partners, and assumes that he has been perhaps viewing this civilization from a rigid perspective. But regardless, Ed asks his reason to be here, and he replies that Janica is out for attendance and Lortel said that she couldn't delay business any longer. Ed also asks about his hair, to which replies it's his autumn style. We then see him feeding Ed by hand, who finds it quite weird, but Jix replies they cannot do anything about, although it would have been better if someone like Elka or Clara did it. But Lortel said absolutely no woman allowed. Ed then tries to check up on the scenario, and asks about hearing a rumor that the alchemy students secretly mass-produced mandragoras and caused an accident. And Jix replies it was that troublemaker Elvira, but Taylor and Clebius took care of it quickly, which makes Ed relieved that Act 2, Scene 5 wrapped up nicely. He then asks about hearing about a monster sneaking into the Academy's underground system, which Jix says was taken care of by him and Taylor, which makes Act 2, Scene 7, wrap up nicely as well. He then asks, for how long was he passed out for, and Jix replies it's been 10 days, which shocks him. And also that he cannot meet Janica and Lortel since one of them is at Academy right now, and Lortel has an important negotiation to prepare for tomorrow. Ed gets worried, as he thought he only slept for 2 to 3 days. He quickly calls out to Jix, and tells him that he has to send a message to Lortel right now. The day after Ed woke up, Act 2, Scene 10, the one full of variables, the struggle over the sage's sealed grimoire has started. And the ones involved are Princess Phinia Kloll, the representative of Elt's merchantry leader, Lortel Ketchum, and the man who strayed from the original storyline. The patriarch of the Rothtailor family, Crapin Rothtailor, the final boss of Act 4. We see Princess Phinia eating lunch alongside someone, who is seemingly apologizing to her. It's because she had a tough time because of someone from their family, and as she ordered, they disowned him, but he would still want to apologize to her for it. But Phinia tells him to not worry too much about it, since it's fine. And the person in front of her is Crapin, someone from the same bloodline as Ed. He is a noble who is dignified, compassionate, and wise head of a ducal family. One can even feel the respect his attendants have for him in their every single action as they serve him. But Phinia can see the truth with her eyes. The man is clearly evil. Crapin then takes notice of Lortel, recognizing her as the proxy of Elt Trading Company. She also introduces herself, citing it's an honor to be in his presence. Recognizing her as the daughter of the Golden King, he refers to hearing about the Golden King's insight and adventurous spirit. But Lortel simply replies that they simply go where there is profit to be made, following the scent of the money, and Crapin simply acknowledges her comment. Each participant is supposed to write down their proposed bid price, and the highest bidder gets it. The grimoire is the treasure of the Sylvania Academy. They don't want to publicize it that they are selling it due to some financial difficulties. So, Principal Abel came up with a plan. Phinia would vouch for it as an observer as her status as the princess, and the vice principal, Rachel, would quietly conduct the auction. The method is simple. The highest bidder right now gets the grimoire. Phinia heard about the trading method in advance and looked into similar book trades. Some of the books sold for average amount between 600 to a max of 8,100 coins. Phinia knows that Lortel probably knows the price and transaction of way more books like these by heart. But she still believes that the one who would take home the book is going to be Crapin. Vice Principal Rachel receives the amount, since the auction is a single bid with no upper limit. Knowing the opponent's maximum is the key. Knowing what Lortel just said a bit before, Phinia thinks that she revealed her intention of making a profit, and assumes that if Lortel is going for the profit, she is not going to bid more than 8,100 coins, the highest book transaction price. Anything higher would be a hard resell for her. So if Crapin just bids a bit more than that, he would win, as we see Rachel getting ready to announce the bid amounts. Crapin bids 8,500 gold coins, something which Phinia predicted, knowing that he wouldn't just visit the academy to make profit from a book transaction, but she is curious in knowing why would he pay such a large amount for it. But when she hears that Lortel bid 9,400 coins, she is left quite shocked, and the book gets sold to her, much to her confusion as she questioned if Lortel wasn't aiming for the profit. Crapin seemingly gets annoyed and leaves, while Princess Phinia wonders in confusion just what is Lortel's real goal. Suddenly, she remembers her saying that they are allies in this matter, making her wonder if Lortel always just had the goal to prevent the scroll from falling into the hand of an evil man like Crapin. But she quickly denies such just action from her, since it's not like Lortel, and even if she did, Phinia believes that she is the only one who can guess Crapin is an evil man, but even then she couldn't find any evidence despite being a princess. It makes her think that someone must have requested Lortel about this, someone controlling her from behind, someone who knows the dark nature of the Rothtailor family and wants to stop him. She remembers Lortel's word about Ed, that she wanted to make sure that Phinia knew that it's a mere speculation that her senior Ed was clinging to the Rothtailor family. Even after being disowned by his family and thrown into the wild, he lived with such determination that he collapsed from overwork, yet he fought against the darkness of the Rothtailor family until the very end. This leaves Phinia from almost fall down due to the immense stress, questioning herself. What has she done? How could she drive such a person on the road to ruin? She was overwhelmed with guilt. But the princess's misunderstanding might have been a blessing. We see Lortel reading the contract, knowing that if she resells the grimoire, the least amount she can get is 8,500 coins, making the difference 900 coins, saying that she wouldn't sell the grimoire back to Crapin was just a merchant's lie. not caring if the grimoire resells or not. With the certificate of buying the grimoire, she can ask for any favor, literally, making her call Ed unbefitting of himself for mentioning doing anything in front of a merchant. A free pass for Ed just for 900 gold coins, which she calls a bargain. Thinking that she could ask him for anything puts a huge smile on her face, and if Princess were to see this, she would probably cough up blood. Back to Ed, who is informed by Jix that Lortel won in the end, and he should have seen the face of her when he delivered Lortel the letter, being relieved that Elka is so innocent. Ed knows that Lortel bet her sexual attraction towards him, and Roth Taylor must have bet an insider information he got. Suddenly, he hears someone shouting at him that he is awake. And it's Janica, who is called out by Jix for running to here despite it being not even lunchtime yet. She explains that she has no classes anymore and will do her assignments at night now. Ed quickly apologizes to her since he caused her a lot of trouble, and she quickly denies it all. But Jix speaks up that she ran around the academy crying, which spread the rumor that she was heartbroken, but she quickly tries to shut him up, and quickly gets one of her spirit to drag him away with his mouth still shut. Mug also comes out from Janica, apologizing to Ed profusely for having no idea that Ed was pushing himself that hard. Ed didn't know that he was here, but Mug explains that he feared his presence might affect his mana, so he was receiving mana from Janica instead. But Ed questions why is he making such a fuss, and Jix answers that considering he was unconscious for the past 10 days, it's natural. Suddenly, when Ed realized that it has been 10 days, he quickly remembers all the meat which would have been spoiled by now. And the fishing nets must have been broken because he didn't maintain them. Since he lost all of his food supplies, means he has to start from the beginning again. Seeing his expression, Janica calls him out for thinking about overworking again, but calls it fine, since she plans to help him, and Jix also comes forward since he got some free time till the next exam. He could help with hunting and woodworking. When it comes to work, he advises Ed to just handle things as they come, and everything will somehow work out. Hearing this, it occurred to Ed suddenly. It wasn't that long ago, he was under the hastily built wooden shelter in the forest with nothing, not even a penny, sleeping alone in the darkness, being bitten by insects without anyone to rely on. But regardless, he has resolved more issues and survived until now, and does agrees that Jix is right. Everything will work out somehow. Janica silently stares at Ed's face and remembers her talk with Marilda, who told her that Ed looks tired. It's her chance since Lortel is busy with the negotiations, so she should take advantage of this time. Janica agrees. But Marilda still calls her out, saying that Lortel is better than her in this sense, so she should learn from her. If she wants to win a man, she needs to be a fox as well. Firstly, she needs to fix her outfit. Currently, she looks like a country housewife to her, and she agrees herself that she looks shabby. Marilda calls it perfect. Unlike her usual lively and energetic self, guys fall for opposite side of her, who is great at managing everyday tasks, so she suggests her to subtly show that side of hers, tie her hair up, and roll up her sleeves more, giving off a vibe of a housewife who has been with him through a tough time. She wants Janica to make some progress today, a high-ranking spirit who is a dating expert with no dating experience. Hearing the word progress, Janica's eyes light up, leaving Marilda to tell her to not mind that part. She then goes on to ask Janica her plan on getting close with Ed, and she replies that she wasn't planning to do anything. It leaves her angry as she starts howling, leaving even the spirit to wonder why is Marilda howling so sadly today. Marilda calls it ridiculous, not believing that a tough guy like Ed would never struggle like that again, so such time won't come again easily. She needs to position herself as someone who supported him through tough times. Janica stops her, saying that she does have a plan in mind. And when she does hear, she indeed calls her plan pretty good. Fast forward to late at night, the stew that Janica made. Ed found it quite good compared to what Jix made. He wants to learn cooking from her, but right now, he plans on recovering, since he cannot keep looking tired forever. He don't feel good right now. His fever and headache are coming back as well. Suddenly, he hears some sound, and the gate opens, calling out Ed for looking tired. And it turns out to be Janica, whom Ed asks if she didn't go back yet, and Janica simply chuckles with a seductive smile in reply. He tries asking her, what is she trying to do, and she again simply chuckles, and sits down near his bed, saying that she is not trying to do anything. Seeing Ed's face, she suggests him that he doesn't have to pretend like he is not having a hard time. Since it's the same for everyone, exhaustion comes both physically and mentally. She knows that he is working hard, enduring a tougher schedule than anyone. She recalls that a lot of people helped her as well when she was having a hard time, but in the end, what helped her the most wasn't someone's rushed support, but a person quietly staying by her side. As such, she commends Ed for doing a great job while having a hard time. When he tries telling her that she don't need to go that far, she shuts him up by saying that he needs to acknowledge that he is having a tough time to be able to rest. Ed quickly lays down again, agreeing that he did had a hard time. A really hard time at that, as Janica lies beside his bed. Now it gets morning, and Ed wakes up again. He notices Janica, who has been beside his side all night long and has fallen asleep. He starts to laugh with a big grin, noting that he has made a full recovery. He goes outside, washes his face, realizing that he couldn't make as much progress as he planned in 10 days. Especially in the research of magic engineering products, advanced crafting skills greatly affect core stats and are far more versatile than general skills. But the problem is, there is a clear limit to how much one can grow just by self-studying via reassembling magic items. Most of the product recipes are rewards from the main quests, so as someone who doesn't want to interfere within the scenario, it's hard for him to get it directly. But looking at Taylor, he doesn't find him to be too interested in magic engineering. It's probably due to even with the recipes, you cannot make useful products right away. You need materials that may be obtained only in the later stages of the original scenarios. But he knows that his situation is different, as someone asks him, what is he thinking about? He knows that he has someone who can procure any material from even the other side of the world. It's Lortel, who seems relieved to see that Ed is doing better. And he replies that he is glad to see her doing better as well. But she argues that despite how she looks, she is suffering from a chronic fatigue right now. Her hair is dry, and her skin is rough. It was such a struggle for getting it back to normal. Ed questions, yet she came all the way to the northern forest when she is so busy, and she replies that she needs to rest too, and there is something she needs to tell him. She is planning to change the ELT Trading Company to just Trading Company and restructure the business, and she needs someone to help with management. Basically a co-executive. While looking at Ed, she tells him to just imagine. He wakes up in the morning, goes to work at the company, and they are only a wall apart. He would get great benefits. She would give him her personal shares of assets as well. It would be almost like they are married. This makes her slightly flustered, as she calls herself out for rambling such things. But Ed asks if it isn't weird that she go that far for him, and Lortel replies that she don't even know anything much to his confusion. She continues that she knows how he feels, that he must be thinking, what is wrong with her, or that he cannot make such an important decision based off the fleeting emotion of a young girl. He probably wants to keep it professional with her until the end, and Ed replies, not necessarily, but thinks opposite in his mind. Lortel goes on, it's because he don't know. After living a lifetime in a world where hundreds of gold coins come and go, and where you are betrayed if you don't betray them first. Something else becomes the most important, a person who would never betray you. Someone who would stay by your side, even if all your wealth is gone. Someone who, even if the whole world turns its back on you, will stay. Ed knows to some, that's family, to others, a lover, to a few, a friend for decades, but to Lortel, who has seen countless wealthy and great merchants rise and fall. The fact that could happen to her is a constant fear. As such, she wants no more and no less, but only asks if he can stay by her side. But he quickly calls her out for saying that while laughing. She laughs out and replies that she almost got him with that, causing Ed to say that her tone change in the middle was too obvious. She then looks at him saying that when she shows such timid side of herself, it would touch their heart and make them waver. But she still claims that it wasn't a complete lie, leaving Ed silent for a moment. Ed answers that he plans to graduate from this school, and he don't intend to leave until then, which seems to make her sad. But Ed continues that if he don't have anything set for what to do after graduation, then he would, changing her mood to slight grin instead. She quickly gets up, planning to wait until graduation, but also claims that he don't really have a choice, showing off the free pass that she claims she might use soon, and leaves while saying that it was great seeing him after so long. The pass makes Ed sigh, who feels that he done something terrible. Just thinking about what would happen in the future, it feels as if he owes her. Meanwhile, Lortel was nervous as well, and thinks that it was all risky just now. You belong to me now. This is what she was planning to say at the end. But seeing him like that messed up her plan. If she had gotten out of there a second later, she would have shown her true face. She even brought the change from magic engineering products payment, but finds it awkward to go see him again. So, she plans to leave it in his hut. The door suddenly opens and Janica comes out, yawning, thinking that Ed must be at the river and plans to prepare a snack for him. Only to encounter Lortel on the way. Both of them are surprised upon seeing each other and questions each other about it. This was the beginning of a new disaster, for Ed as well. We move on to Ed, who is chopping wood while Mug is telling him to take it easy before he collapses again. Ed notes that Tarkan must have scolded him and apologizes for it. Regardless, thanks to Janica and Jix, he got enough food and firewood, and thanks to Lortel, he can now also furnish the place. The only thing in his mind right now are these letters he received before collapsing. One was from Lortel, warning that Elt might do something, so be careful. Another was from Princess, informing him about Krapen's movements. And the last one was from the Academy, but the sender was completely unexpected. Professor Glast. He sent him the letter, telling him that he wanted to have a private conversation with him. But he couldn't meet him due to falling unconscious, and he has no idea why he summoned him. He is the final boss of Act 2, and the scene for Act 2's final has already begun. He remembers most of the content. Professor Glass believed that a select few with talent could change the world. To revive Sylvania, the great sage with the most talent in his Troy, he researched aspectual magic. To complete it, he needed the sage's sealed grimoire, but the Academy fell for Lortel's plot and sold it. In desperation, he steals it and tried to inject Sylvania's spirit to Ayla's body, who was born with aspectual magic to usher another progressive era. It was literally a madman's narrative. But Taylor steps in to save her, breaking through countless traps. After having his entire scheme go awry, Professor Glast made a rather abrupt statement before falling off the top of the magic tower. Despite only dreaming of academic advancements and the discovery of talented individuals, his final words were, something Ed is unable to remember. The beginning of his conquest starts with Professor Glast kidnapping Taylor's friend, Ayla, as we see her being scared while someone asks her if she is awake, while she tells them to not come near her in trembling voice. The person replies, it makes sense, since the demon of the underground waterway is quite terrifying, while Ayla shouts at them that it's their fault. And with tears in her eyes, she expresses her hate for Ed, who tells her that she is being way too mean right now. Since they are both kidnapped right now, leaving Ed to take a big sigh as the Act 2 final scene, Glass Conquest War begins. We go back in time to 3 days ago. Ed was able to finish everything he hasn't been able to in 10 days. Not being able to train wasted so much of his time. The Glass Conquest War was about to start, but he wasn't able to raise his magic engineering stats yet, though he also needs materials for it. Suddenly, he gets an idea to drastically raise his magic engineering stats. In the finale scene of Act 2, the Glass Conquest War has 4 stages. Among the 4, the hardest, Phase 3, the secret laboratory. The boss of this stage, the Spirit Library's librarian Reyna, is so strong that she is hard to clear without the Sword Saint's form. But it's the problem for Taylor to solve, and what Ed is interested in is the content of the library. It's full of valuable magic engineering blueprints. Just from what he remembers, there are dozens of them. There are even 2 legendary grade ones. But it's still dangerous for him, though it should still be fine, if you don't go in alone, that is. We then move to the campus, where 2 new students are joining Class A, Adele and Ayla. Professor Glass tells all the students to not worry about other students joining midway, since there are lots of talented students this year, so it won't affect their class content. Lortel doesn't believe as such, noting that Class A only has 3 students, and it would only increase to 5 next semester, but it makes sense since there have been years when there was no Class A for Professor Glass to supervise. And Ayla, who might not be great when it comes to combat, she is still said to have incredible affinity for aspectual magic. Suddenly, Jix stands up, asking if the criteria for Class A be strictly determined by talent, since students who put in effort might bloom in unexpected ways. So the professor asks a question in reply, if Jix thinks that he is ruining and underestimating them by neglecting their efforts. Which Professor Glass don't think so. He believes that the surest way to ruin someone's life is to instill premature confidence and vague talent in them. Lortel takes a deep sigh at this. She looked into the academic faculty before coming here. Professor Glass' self-righteous, almost obstinate obsession with talent is probably because of his daughter. She was just an average mage, but he had endless faith in her. As a parent, it was natural. However, she took it not as her father's trust, but as Professor Glass' faith in her. Because of which, she prematurely joined a monster raid at a young age, and eventually passed away due to it. Since then, the professor became obsessed with proven talent. During most of the academic year, he devoted himself into researching aspectual magic. But what he is truly pursuing is not aspectual magic, but its creator. Hailed as the most talented in history, the greatest sage, Sylvania. He is probably bringing Ayla into his class for his research on that magic. Suddenly, she also gets called out by the professor. But he quickly changes his mind, planning to see her tomorrow separately instead since it's not related to the lesson. Lortel realizes that it must be due to the grimoire, since it's essential for his research in the aspectual magic. But she believes whatever he says it's not going to be of any use, because the connection ceremony for passing the ownership of the grimoire is just around the corner. The ceremony is about to start. It was a close call, but Ed completed his plan. His core plan is to follow Taylor while he is barging through the course from Phase 1 to 5, while he picks over the leftover items. He made a list of must-have items, especially in Phase 3. He plans to grab all the magic engineering items in the library, especially the 2 legendary ones. But while the effect of these items are good, because of the difficulty of farming of its materials, they can only be crafted in the final stages of the scenario. And while he is there, he also plans to check out Taylor in Phase 5 and then return to camp, and his plan would be complete. The Glass Conquest War begins on the day of the Grimoire Connection Ceremony. He told Janica that he lost something in the underground, and they should go find it together. He thought that she would hate it since it's dark and narrow, but she strangely seems really enthusiastic, which made him feel sorry since he could feel her concern for him. But he still finds his plan perfect, and just then, someone calls him out. It's Assistant Professor Claire, who tells Ed that Professor Glass has called him. Ed wonders the reason for it, since Professor Glass should be busy due to the connection ceremony tomorrow, but agrees to meet. As seeing how he called for him again, it must be something important. A bit later at the office, he meets Ayla, who finds her reaction too much when he didn't even do anything to her, though he does remember shooting arrows at her. But more importantly, he wonders what is she doing here, since she is supposed to be kidnapped when the Glass Conquest begins tomorrow. And why was he called out on top as well? Suddenly, he realizes something. He quickly scrims through the papers, finding research records, notes, grimoires. He doesn't find anything that can change the future he knows of, but if he were to find a connection to him, it's this one thing. He thinks that Professor Claire might have reported about him, so Professor Glass must have figured what he did in the Awfulest Hall. Suddenly, he senses something and quickly takes out his weapon, making Ayla even more terrified. The gate opens, and it turns out to be none other than Professor Glass. Ayla runs towards him, requesting help that Ed has a dagger. But the professor instead uses aspectual magic, and catches Ayla with his time prison spell and tries to target Ed next, who immediately throws the dagger at Professor Glass' hand. He quickly calls out Mug, and the dagger starts to glow, and causes a huge explosion. Professor Glass commends Ed for catching on quick on what is going on. His response was exceptionally smooth, and asks if he researched his materials in that short time. Though it's strange, since just scanning a few documents wouldn't be enough to tell him his intentions, Ed asks in reply if there is a reason for him to restrain him, since he must only need Ayla's affinity with aspectual magic. So he would keep his mouth shut if he lets him go, but Professor Glass replies that he is doing this for his own sake, so don't think too harshly of him. Ed thinks that he at least needs some explanation. He cannot just understand if the professor simply tells him to not think too harshly of him. But it does make sense, since even if he managed to escape from this place, Professor Glass wouldn't leave him alone, only disrupting the scenario even more. And besides, if he is kidnapped right now, he would probably be locked up with Ayla in the secret lab. It would be like getting directly to Phase 3. It pops a question in his mind. Should he just let himself get kidnapped? And so, he comes out of the hiding, making the professor ask if he has decided to fight back or have some kind of plan, and uses his magic on him, calling it not too bad of a deal for him either, and freezes Ed with his time prison. He starts moving closer to Ed, thinking about him. Professor Claire was suspicious of him first, but Ed became so successful despite living in the wilderness, almost as if he lives 48 hours in a day. Professor Glass argues that it's not what she was saying about him when she was calling Ed a mastermind, and she replies that she never expected his academic records to be like this before. When Professor Glass saw him in combat using the crystal ball, he found his knack for combat to be extraordinary, but it was clearly an approach for a weak person. Analyzing the opponent thoroughly and using all available means is the way of the weak person, a product of effort, not talent. His expression right now also showed no hint of unease and also reminds him of something he lost in the past. The daughter who said that she would bring honor to his name through her achievements, it reminds him of that memory again. Meanwhile, we see Muggs secretly getting out of Ed and flying away. He seems to be heading straight towards Ed's hut, where we see Janica is at, who is seemingly making food for him and notices that Ed is running a bit late.